Once again, please rise and join us in the pledge.
Thank you.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome to all in the audience here, those viewing us at home. Go to item 3 on the agenda, which is meet with the Town Administrator Screening Committee and hear from them in terms of who they're recommending as finalists. First, I'd like to thank each and every member of the screening committee. Steve Mayo, Town Administrator, Town of Wakefield, Superintendent Kathleen Willis, Don Kelleher, member of the Finance Committee, Elizabeth Paveo, our Finance Director, my colleagues, Mr. Messeri, Mr. Foti. There's one member who was unable to make it this evening, and Joe Laria, who was a citizen representative. So thank you very much for the time and the effort you put in to this very, very important process, and I appreciate every bit of it. So Mr. Foti is the chair. I don't see Mr. Kobayashi. I didn't know whether or not he was going to come from the Collins Center.
I believe he was coming, so I don't know if, did you want to wait for him or pass this over for now? It's up to you.
Why don't you start by just giving everyone a background as to what
The process.
process was in terms of narrowing it down to this evening's presentation of who the finalists are. And maybe Mr. Kobayashi would join us before we get to that important moment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the charge of the Board of Selectmen, the screening committee assembled, and we had a meeting. We met with the members and Mr. Kobayashi from the Collins Center to initially come up with, well, to pick a chair and then go from there with a schedule of how we're going to move forward with the process of selecting who we're going to bring in for interviews. We had, the Collins Center had sent us 9 applicants, and we chose, as a committee, chose to see all the applications and make a decision based on that, taking into account their recommendations, and decided on bringing in 6 applicants.
So if I can just stop you. So
Sure.
Collins Center did an initial screen down tonight.
Correct.
So they
Correct.
had so many initial applicants.
There was 21 applicants. They narrowed it down to 8 or 9, I believe. And then we asked for we wanted to see all the resumes, just in case there was someone of interest in the ones that the Collins Center didn't recommend to us. We ended up narrowing that down to 6 people who we wanted to bring in, 6 candidates we wanted to bring in for interviews. We also, the Collins Center sent us a list of recommended questions. I also polled the committee for any questions that they were interested in. We had a subsequent meeting on that and came up with a number of questions that we asked each applicant. And then from there, hoping that we get some constructive dialogue between the committee and the applicant. That occurred over a 2-day period, on Friday and a Saturday. From then, we sat down, we discussed each applicant in depth, and came down with who we recommended, applicants that we recommended to the, tonight we want to recommend to the Board of Selectmen to bring in for interviews.
Is anyone else from the screening committee would like to give your input in terms of that part of the process at all? Does anyone have any questions? Any board members have questions regarding that part of the process?
I think I have one comment. Go ahead, Joe.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, William Smith, who also wrote,
Mr. Smith, you mind coming up to the podium, please?
and I think when you're talking, it could be a little louder because it's
Sorry.
hard to hear back there. Yeah, my first question would be that you said you had like a couple of questions of the applicants that were being solicited. But to go back to the original structure of this whole thing, you people informed this community very clearly what the process was going to be. It was going to be a profile distributed by the outside consultant,
That was done.
which they did. And they said in it they were gonna suggest what the recommendations, what the requirements were gonna be of the job. That was done. The screening committee was to meet with these people and come in with a group of 6. The Board of Selectmen was supposed to take that group of 6 and
Nope.
interview them. You originally were supposed to meet with 6 applicants.
I think, Mr.
And
Smith,
reduce it to, excuse me, it was originally between 3 and 5, or I thought it was 6, but it may have been 3 to 5. But from those 3 to 5, after you interviewed them, you were gonna reduce that number to 3. Instead of following the due process of what you told the people you were gonna do, now it's expedited to a point where nobody knows who's going where, and it's like a political football.
well,
The
I'm
process-
gonna stop you, Mr. Smith, I'm gonna stop you right there. You've had some misstatements already. There is no political football in this process whatsoever. So I guess I'm unclear as to what you say the process is deviated from the initial process.
You completely deviated from the process as you originally
The
told the
proce-
people in this
process-
community.
The process to date has been carried out according to the plan that was laid out by the Collins Center. So unless you can tell me something specific that this screening committee has done to sort of circumvent what you claim to be the initial process that was laid out to the public, I take offense to that.
No, it's what it is what
It is what it is. Well, can you
Right.
be specific,
And,
Mr. Smith?
yes, I have no
Mr. Smith,
problem with the screening committee.
Can you be specific as
Yes, I
to
will.
how the process is deviated from what was originally presented to the
The
public?
game plan has changed.
What was the game plan, Mr. Smith?
game
Be
plan-
specific.
Was, at the end of May, you were gonna appoint the new town administrator. That's the original plan. That has changed. Now you're gonna appoint the town administrator the day before the League of Women Voters Night for the candidates night.
Mr. Smith, we haven't even decided as a board as to when we're gonna conduct the interviews.
The
of-
information that was in
Mr.
the
Smith, you
newspaper-
are misinformed.
Well, I don't think I am.
We had discussed, I'm telling you, you are. You may not want to accept it. This board has not set a date for when the interviews of the finalists will be conducted. We don't even know who or how many finalists we're going to have.
We read in the newspaper that tonight, the steering committee, I have nothing to do, no gripes with the steering committee whatsoever, because they've been told what to do by this board.
No, they have not been told by this board
Well,
what to
somebody had to
do.
tell them what to do.
This is Collins Center.
The Collins Center.
Well, then the Collins
That's why
Center.
we brought in the Collins Center, so this would not be a political football. We're tired of that in this community.
No, the community
So
is
as a-
tired.
as a- No, no.
The community
No.
is dead tired.
We are tired
The
of the
shenanigans.
political games. So we went, hired an independent, this board unanimously agreed, the best way to go about this process, to eliminate any political aspect, was to hire an outside consultant to come in and do the process. That process has been carried out from the beginning until now, as I understood it.
So what you're saying to me right now is, you're not just accepting the screening committee's recommendation of 2 people tonight to be
Where do you,
interviewed by
where have you heard there was 2
the
people?
North Reading transcript. It was in there last
They
week.
said there was 2 finalists?
It's the indication was that there's gonna be 2
What
finalists.
indication? The only
In-
indication has been,
Based upon the conversation at
Based-
the last meeting.
based upon the conversation,
Your conversation of your last meeting, absolutely.
Mr. Smith, we don't know. They haven't presented us with the number of finalists and who they're going to be.
You asked if
Mr.
anybody
O'Leary
had.
Mr. O'Leary's position at our meeting, our last meeting, was that he would like to see more than 2.
Absolutely.
To me, it didn't matter to me whether it was 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, as I said at the last meeting.
There was
Because
not
this-
one member of this board that supported what he said at that meeting.
That's right.
And, that's right. And he said, instead of 2, you should have at least 3.
But we
That's
don't
what he
even know
said.
what they're going to present.
And not a
to us.
person on this board supported his position. So the assumption is you're gonna go with 2. If you don't say something, how is anybody gonna know
It
what you're
doesn't matter.
thinking?
This is my thought process, Mr. Smith. This screening committee that I have the utmost confidence and faith in.
And so do I.
Okay, we're in agreement on that.
Correct.
So I have the utmost faith and confidence in this committee. All right? If they choose to interview 6 people, and out of that 6, they want to present all 6 because they think those are the best qualified and those that will best fit what we need in this community, that's fine. If they choose 2 to present to us, I'm fine with that as well. That's
Okay,
my
well, sir,
position.
Can we stop right there? And I can agree with a lot of that stuff you just said. But to come in here with 2 applicants.
We don't
What
even know
if-
how many they're
Let me-
going to be.
Let me finish, because what you indicated last week at your meeting was that.
We indicated nothing. 2 came up from Mr. O'Leary. What
did
other
you-
member
Mr.
talked
O'Leary,
about?
what did you hear last week?
No, what I asked was, I said I wanted it, originally looking for 3 to 5. I was asking for a minimum of 3 applicants from the screening committee so that we weren't put into a situation that was an either-or in relation to a choice. I didn't want to be put into a position where if it's an either-or and someone else takes a job somewhere else or declines or we can't come to an agreement with, we're stuck with one.
And
I
that's
think that it was
exactly why I'm
incumbent
here
upon the
tonight.
board
That's
to
fine.
provide
Well, I
themselves
don't-
with additional options. You asked me what I said. And in addition to that, I also said that I wasn't willing to abdicate my responsibility of screening an adequate number of candidates for the position to
Well,
a screening committee.
And
That's
that's
why we
exactly
originally asked in the profile for 3 to 5 applicants, which is what was advertised and what was going to be presented to the board for consideration.
And
But-
that's exactly what the rest
But
of this
that charge was
community
not
heard.
given to the screening committee.
That's
It was in
exactly
the
what the rest
profile
of
that we
the.
put
It was in the
together.
profile, but it was never discussed.
The profile was put together by the $20,000 company
No,
that
no,
you
it was put
hired.
together by
They
this
put a
board.
profile they put together, and you people are completely going in the opposite. You're bypassing
We're
due
not
process based on your own profile.
What due process? I gotta hear you on due process. What due process?
The process of doing what the profile says. Why aren't you following what the profile said? We paid $20,000 to have this company come in.
That was a
and
profile,
pick-
right?
And advertise for applicants. You had roughly 21 or 26 or something applicants.
Right, so
The screening committee narrowed it down to what I can understand, around 5 to 6.
I think Mr. Fode had just said they interviewed 6 out of the 21 that they had looked at, including the 9 that the Collins
And
Center
I
had
guess my main
presented.
question to you, Mr. Delaney, is what is the expediting this whole process?
There's been
Why are you
there's been
pushing
no-
this thing so fast?
We have not expedited the process. The Collins Center is the one that has set the schedule.
I know, I totally disagree with you, that
You
assumption.
disagree?
Of course I do.
So I'll just tell you, the
I
Collins
read the
Center,
profile, I know
Collins
what it
Center
says.
set up the first meeting, and then we all sat down, and then we all, as a group, decided on dates that we could all meet going forward. So it wasn't.
So you're
the dates-
telling me this
the dates
process
weren't-
was
let me
not
finish. The dates
expedited?
weren't given to each of us and said, these are the dates you have to meet. We all had our phones and calendars there, and we all said, this is the date we can meet, I can't meet that. There's several dates that some of us couldn't make. So those are the dates that were based on when everybody could meet.
So, Mr. Fode, you're telling me that this process was not expedited at all?
Not in my opinion, it was
You
not.
can say that as a representative of the community?
I can
that you
absolutely say that. If
with
you
a
don't believe
straight
me, I
face.
have other members of the screening committee who are here who can attest to it.
I'm not asking the screening committee.
I'm telling you,
asking that
yes,
had
and
a
I answered
profile.
you.
He was the chair
And
of the
I answered
committee.
you.
Mr. Aseri was part of that committee. I don't know if you heard me thank all these wonderful people as I opened the
I
meeting.
heard you thank all these wonderful
Okay.
people. I
No,
agree with everything you said.
I'm getting to the point where I'm resenting what you're trying to allege here, because you're trying to cloud a process that has worked, in my opinion, very well to this point in time. It's probably a process the community should have used a long time ago, all right? You're disparaging very good, hardworking people, a town administrator from a neighboring community, a superintendent of schools. Let me speak about the superintendent of schools. The school committee, like I said, I don't know how many finalists we're gonna present. The school committee, when they selected Superintendent Willis, they narrowed it down to 2 finalists. It worked well.
We're
She's probably the
talking-
best and hardest working person in this whole entire town, and I've had the pleasure to work with her over the last two plus years in putting together that school building project.
I'm
All right?
not concerned what
So,
the school
we
committee
have-
did.
We have the most respected member of probably the community, Don Kelleher, on the finance committee, and he's the first one everyone looks to when there's a committee to be formed.
Let me tell you something. I've known Don Kelleher all my life. He's a great person.
That's right.
He's well-spoken, he's well-represented, and he's sincere and he's honest. But you people are definitely bypassing a process that
I'm
you
bypassing.
accepted.
Mr. Smith, I'm gonna stop you now, please.
That's fine, I'll sit down.
You wanna keep saying that
No.
we're bypassing the process. I've told you, Mr. Fode has told you, the process is not being bypassed.
Well, I believe it is, and that's my.
Okay, you can believe whatever you wanna believe. Mr. Yule.
Jeff Yule, 427 Park Street. I just want to make sure I understood clearly. I might have misheard. You had 9 applicants that you reviewed or interviewed?
No.
No, reviewed. You reviewed their.
No.
Hold on. There was 9 that were recommended by the Collins Center.
Right,
We chose to take all 21 resumes and review them individually.
okay.
And then from that point, we decided who we wanted to bring in for interviews.
And you brought that down to 9?
6.
Oh, okay, so I guess where did that 9, you mentioned 9 applicants.
The nine were the 9 that the Collins Center pulled out and recommended as
I
potential
see.
people that we should bring in.
Right,
We
okay.
chose from that point to still bring in, to review the 21 resumes, and then at that point, we decided on the 6.
Okay, all right. And then I thought I understood you to say that you interviewed some outside the Collins Center group. Did I misunderstand that?
No, Jeff, there were 21 resumes
Right, got that.
Calling Center received. They reviewed them first. They made a list of 8 or 9, I don't remember the exact number, of candidates that they thought we should look at. In other words, they
Right.
had done a screening process. The committee said, we'd like to look at all 21.
Right.
In the end, after the screening of all of the resumes, and by tallying everybody's thoughts on who was qualified, et cetera, we came down to wanting to interview 7. I think one fellow withdrew
Correct.
before we even got to the interviewing
Correct.
process.
Okay,
And we set, the next step was to set dates to which all the committee members would be available to conduct interviews. We interviewed 2 individuals on Friday afternoon and 4 on Saturday, ending around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That included, after the interviews, discussion and a final culling down of those members that the committee is going to present tonight.
great, okay. And point of clarification, the committee is going to make a recommendation to you tonight
Correct.
of 1, 2, 3, or 10, whatever the case might be.
Well, I don't think it'd be
No
more
more
than 6.
I know, it won't be. Or whatever, right?
And by the way, it's just another little step in the process. After the committee making a decision on who they'd like to recommend, the Calling Center went forth and did a
Background check.
background check, they did a financial check, and they did an educational check based on the credentials that were presented by each of the candidates.
That's good, that's good. To follow up, though, I sent each of you a letter. I also put it in the transcript with regard to expressing my concerns, similarly expressed by Mr. Smith. But I think that it's important to understand here that some time ago, there was an article in the transcript, not alluding to, but stating that the newly elected selectmen would have a say in the possible, of the new TA. That was, I don't recall what month that was, but it was at the beginning of this process. The transcript had that article, and because you were not running, Mr. Delaney decided not to run for office, and therefore the article indicated that the process was set up in such a way that the new selectman would have some input at the time a new TA was selected. It then came later on, there was another article in the transcript that indicated that the process was being sped up, and that the process the decision would be made before May 6th, and that the newly elected selectmen would not have the any input on whether on the new TA. And hence, that's why I sent each of you a letter based on that, and I put it in the transcript and patch as well. And I guess that's the talk around town, for lack of a better description, and that's the feeling. So in defense of what Bill was saying, and in expressing concern, I know that it's important that the new selectman, whoever it may be, has to live with the new TA for their term and beyond. So having the ability to have some input and that maybe some insight or suggestion that might be helpful in the process, even though I don't think one new selectman's going to change anything dramatically, still, there could be something that could be helpful and be added. And so I urge you to, whatever you're thinking of doing, to allow the newly elected selectmen to at least have an opportunity to have some input to the newly selected TA, so that he at least feels part of the process. I don't think it would change anything, but I do think that the opportunity going forward is very important, so, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Calvert?
So the question of speeding up the process, just so you understand that the screening committee's goal was to find the best candidates to give to the selectmen so they could then debate it, interview the candidates, make their decision. As has been said here before, we met, made sure our calendars worked so that we could carry out the process in as most deliberate fashion that we could, with no other agenda other than to do the work that was given to us as a committee and to present candidates in a timely fashion so that they would still be available to the board to select. We wouldn't have taken other jobs. We had already lost one candidate in the process. And so there was no hidden agenda to moving things faster other than to be able to get our work done, present the candidates to the board so that they could then do what they needed to do. So no hidden agendas.
Have you heard from Mr.
No.
Kobayashi?
No.
I think we're at a point in time where like to hear who the finalists are.
Well, at this point, at the last meeting, Mr. Fode was going to check with Mr. Kobayashi in relation to whatever the recommended number of candidates were going to be as far as a timing standpoint and whether or not they felt, or he felt, that it would have been at risk for holding off the appointment process until after the new member of the board is seated. I mean, we're 2 weeks away from an election. And Mr. Fode was gonna go back and check with Mr. Kobayashi and give us an answer, I guess, as to whether or not he felt we would be at risk based upon the candidates. Do we have a,
Yep, based on my conversation with Mr. Kobayashi, he said that they are not applicants in any other job that he's involved in. Any other search that he's involved in. I don't know if he asked them point blank, are you looking at anything else? But he did say that he does not know, he's not aware of them looking at any other jobs.
so therefore, there may not be any harm in waiting until the new member is seated, as far as running the risk of losing them to some other community.
He didn't say that one way or the other to me. Again, what he said to me was, to the best of his knowledge, he's unaware of them being a candidate anyplace else.
Pretty good, he's fairly knowledgeable as to what's going on where, outside of his own sphere too, but he's aware as to what's going on.
Take a peek, see who's coming down the hall.
No.
Nope.
No, it's just,
No, it's just- Did you have
I'm sorry?
another was there two questions in that?
Well, what was the answer to the question that we'd asked a couple of weeks ago? And then, again, I want to reiterate, and first of all, again, I want to thank the search committee. I know they spent a considerable amount of time and effort and energy. It's a great group of people, and I respect each and every one of them and their judgments. But for Mr. Fode, the chairman, to say that the profile was ignored, or wasn't looked at in relation to, I mean, to me, that was part of the charge. Here's the profile, this is the type of candidate we're looking for.
I guess I'm-
Excuse me, which,
But I guess
may I finish?
I guess I'm missing.
You're missing what?
I'm asking you to be specific as to what part of the profile
The
was
profile
was
said
not.
that we would be, that the screening committee would be take all the applicants, and we get whittled down, with the intent of presenting 3 to 5 people for consideration of the Board of Selectmen, with a decision being made by the end of May. You know, at the latest, that'll be the outside, doesn't mean it can be done sooner. But it was very specific as far as 3 to 5 candidates to be interviewed by the board. And that's why I asked last week to ensure that we got at least 3. As I stated previously, you know, we all take our job very seriously here, but it is our final job and our final determination. And should we just end up with 2, I have a concern. And my guess is the committee, if they looked at the profile, or understood it as part of a charge, which is what I understood it to be. Again, I was not expecting an either/or. I was expecting a choice among several, which is more than 2, more than a couple. So that I would, once again, I know they're gonna make a recommendation this evening. But I think the board should be looking at least 3 candidates in any of their deliberations. And out of 21 applications and 6 interviews, even if the 3rd candidate or the 4th candidate may not be the committee's first choice, they should be giving the board the final decision as to the choices to make, not just an either/or.
Mr. Prisco, and then Ms. Herbert.
I just want to give you my opinion on regarding whether it's 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. Everybody said the same thing about the selection committee, how much respect they have for them, how much they trust them, and so on and so forth. And I as well. I don't think they would put a 3rd candidate in front of it. If it's 2, which it sounds like it is, I don't know. Why would you put a 3rd candidate through that they all believe is not worthy of sitting in front of us, wasting their time? This is an individual that has failings. This is an individual that has to be out looking for a job. Why would you put a 3rd person in there just for the sake of having a 3rd person when this person has no opportunity to get this job? That's not fair to the
Based on their
candidate.
opinion.
I'm just telling you. This is my opinion, okay?
I'm sorry.
If you've ever gone for a job with this kind of a magnitude, you want to make sure if you have a seat at the table that you have a fair shot. You don't want to get a seat at the table just because somebody else wants you to have an extra person there. That aside, that's my opinion on it. If it's 2, then I trust that they did their due diligence. Out of those 6 that they interviewed, 6, then this was the best. They felt had the best chance to sit across from us and have a shot at this job. I'm okay with it. Then the other piece of it is transition. One part that we continue not to talk about. But open up the door to the town administrator's office. I ask any of you, go look at his desk. He's got manila folders everywhere. He does a lot of stuff. The stuff can't get transitioned overnight. And he's also looking for jobs. He's been finalist in a couple other places. He's already interviewing other places. We don't know how much longer we have him. So I'm not trying to speed up this process or asking to speed up the process because I have a hidden agenda. We have a job to do, and we can't transition overnight. So I ask that we continue with what we're talking about. Continue with the timeline, because we have to have a transition. There's a lot of important things going on in this town. And when that goes out the door, when Mr. Ballycones goes out the door, his knowledge and experience of what's been going on around here for the last 9 years is going to go out with him. So I ask us to still keep that in mind when we're making this decision, because he could be gone in 2 weeks.
Ms. Herbert? Can I ask you to come up to the podium, please?
I really don't believe that it's an either-or situation.
Please come up, so those at home can hear you. Don't look at me like that.
We gotta get a portable mic.
Abby Hurlbut, Chair of the Finance Committee.
Thank you.
It is never an either-or situation. I've served on several hiring committees in this town, including most recently the committee to hire Carl Nelson's replacement. We went out, we had a slew of applicants, we looked at the resumes, we talked to a bunch of people, and it was the superintendent as well as the hiring committee's feeling that there really weren't candidates that were worthy of this community that we were going to put forward. The same holds for the Board of Selectmen. If the Board of Selectmen don't particularly feel that they can endorse the candidates that have been put forward by the committee, then they have every right, and I'm sure the committee would go along with it, to go back out again. It's never an either or, no matter how many candidates.
Thank you. Mr. Fode?
Oh, you want me to move forward then with the?
I thought you had something.
I did, but
Mr.
I
Chairman.
can hold it.
Mr. Misery?
I would think at this point, the committee should make their recommendations to the board. The board then has to decide how it wants to proceed.
I agree. Oh, Mr. Mayor?
I think the committee would be disappointed if I didn't say
Thank
anything.
I was gonna text you.
I know. Steve Mayo, Town Administrator, Wakefield, Massachusetts, and I want to thank you for the ability to serve on this committee. It was a great committee, and I assure these gentlemen here that these candidates were put through their paces. I mean, it wasn't just run-of-the-mill questions. They were pointed questions with a lot of follow-up and a lot of pointed follow-ups that really drew them out of their experience. And I think Chairman Fode and that committee is correct. We wanted to see all of the applicants from the beginning, even though the Collins Center had narrowed it down to 9 out of 21 or whatever. We felt we weren't doing our job if we didn't look at all of them. And we looked at all of them, went through all of them, and had some pretty, I think, pointed discussions. So I think that the candidates that we are moving forward are certainly worthy of discussion in front of this board. I think this town will be well-served by them, as you've been well-served by Greg, who I've enjoyed working with over the years. So I thank you for the confidence, and I do think that when you see the candidates, I think you'll be quite happy and quite impressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chairman, the last thing I want to say is, these are, the 21 applicants are people who have, most of them have jobs elsewhere. And when you get to this point, you're now disclosing, and some of them are applying without telling their communities or their current position, places of employment, that they're doing this. When it gets to this point, their names are gonna be out in the public, the transcript, anyplace else, people are gonna know it. And to bring in any additional people that we thought wasn't a good fit for the town was unfair to them also. So that's why we did what we did.
All right. Are you
Yep.
going to announce the finalists? Or you
Yep.
have someone designated to do so?
No, I'll do it. That being said, I'm sure to much discussion, we are recommending 2 people to move on to the Board of Selectmen. Michael P. Gilberto and Thomas J. Durkin. And we'll get you all the information, their resumes, and I'll send you copies of at least the questions that we asked to you guys sometime tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Now, at this point, Mr. Yule?
Just a point of clarification, you said Mike whom?
Sorry?
First
These are
name?
2 recommendations,
Michael Gilberto, Gilleberto,
and Tom Durkin?
Thomas Durkin, Durkin.
Okay. Now, you just read that now, that those are the 2 recommendations by the committee? Is that?
That's
okay.
correct.
No, this is the first everyone's hearing that at this point?
First
No
I'm
one
hearing.
else, no one else on the board?
Anybody
knows
outside the
that?
screening committee and the Collins Center, this is the first they're hearing of it.
Okay, so the,
This is the first I've heard of it.
good, okay.
Same here.
Never heard of the names.
Clarify that, thank you.
At this
Again,
point-
I just want to, I know you already did, but I want to, as the chairman of the committee, want to thank each member. I can't say that I've had the pleasure of working with a committee that was great to work with, but also, there was debate. It wasn't, not everybody was in consensus on certain things like questions to ask and stuff like that, timing. But when it came down to bringing it forward and bringing the names forward, I'd like to say that, that it was actually unanimous on the 2 names. And there was a bunch of debate about a 3rd candidate, but the decision was made that it just wasn't going to be a good fit for the town, in their opinion.
Can you disclose where these gentlemen are from and maybe what their current situation is? Just for
Yeah,
public consumption. and
Mr.
mine.
Gilberto was a resident of North Reading and is currently the town administrator in the town of Tingsboro. And Mr. Durkin is a resident of Peabody and is currently the treasurer of the Mass Water Resources Authority.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fode. At this point, board members would like to discuss the scheduling for interviews of the finalists.
I
Oh,
think we need to distribute those resumes to the board members.
Yeah.
He said he was going to do so.
Oh, okay, I missed that,
Yeah.
yeah.
He was going to do that, he was going to distribute to us the questions that were posed to the candidates
Yeah.
when they were interviewed.
Actually, what I'll do is I'll go so far as to send the questions that the Collins Center, the preliminary questions the Collins Center sent to us, and then the questions that we decided on going.
That's great. Yeah, that'd be helpful.
And then you can decide what you want to do with those and along
So
with the
we,
resumes.
we, as a board now, have to generate our own.
Yeah, I would
Right.
find those questions to be helpful.
Yep.
I agree.
Not that you have the answers to them.
No, but at least you'll know where we went with them and
Okay. At this point, I'd like to discuss scheduling the interviews for the finalists. Suggestions I have, Mr. Misery had an unfortunate accident yesterday, and he's a bit hobbled, so.
I'm having
that-
surgery tomorrow,
um,
and if
But-
it's appropriate at this point, I want to thank the members of the fire department who came to my house, scraped me off the grass, put me in the ambulance, and drove me to the Leahy Clinic, and then managed to carefully get me into the emergency room. So I'm going to be hobbling around for quite a while, probably more than Abby. No, more than Abby did. I'm not talking about
Strike
now.
that from the minutes. Strike that from the minutes, too.
So,
But I do recall her.
I still am.
You still am? Okay, well, I hope I'm not gonna take that long, but they tell me it's gonna be a long time. Thank you.
Good luck with your recovery.
I'll open it up for discussion, but I would like to see the interviews done either by the end of this week, depending upon Mr. Misery's schedule, or at a date next week. Propose earliest Friday or Saturday afternoon. Next week, we cannot do it on Monday because we have our public hearing relative to the town budget. Tuesday night is candidates' night for these two gentlemen that are in the audience here. So I'd suggest either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday of next week, or even the following Saturday, as potential dates. I open it up for discussion for board members.
I think it's risky to say I'm gonna be available this week.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Looking at Wednesday of next week, which would be April 30th. I'd suggest probably starting sometime no later than 6, maybe as early as 5 o'clock.
I'm
Anyone?
fine. I'm wide open.
Mr. O'Leary.
I'll go back to my comments at the last meeting. I believe that whoever the newly elected member of the board should have a say as to who the next town administrator is and should be involved in the interview process. And in light of the timeline now, and the unfortunate occurrence to Mr. Misery, I mean, we'd be less than a week away from an election. So I think, the public's going to choose a new member of the board who's going to have a 3-year term. Mr. Fode and I are up next year. Whether we run for re-election or get re-elected, if we choose to run for re-election, don't know. Other two members of the board are up in 2 years. So the newest member of the board is going to have a 3-year term. I assume it's going to be a 3-year contract with the new town administrator. That's generally what they run. I think the newest member of the board should be involved in the interview process and in the final decision-making of the process here, who we're going to choose. And as far as the process goes, one of the things that we did in the past, which was very helpful, was as we interviewed the finalists, we also invited them before the public interview. We invited them out to tour the town with members of the board, went out to went to the police station, fire station, senior center, toured some of the facilities, showed them a little bit of the community, saw how they interacted with the general public and the employees, got a good feel for interpersonal skills, other than a setting here for, an hour or 90 minutes, whatever it's going to be. And I found it very useful. Again, some people interview better than others, and I found the exercise to be very helpful. Went out and had a cup of coffee somewhere, or a bite to eat, and chit-chatted, broke bread and chit-chatted about it a little bit. I mean, it's an important decision. I think the board should be comfortable with who we have, other than just a one-shot interview. And I think that type of a venue, or some other suggestion I'm open to, is helpful, really helpful in getting a feel for an individual. And I think Mr. Valiakonis went through that process.
I remember having lunch at Hillview,
That's right. Yeah.
very clearly.
And it was, I just think incrementally do it that way, then bring them in, and then as we're interviewing again, they have a better feel for the community. I would assume that they've already done a little bit of research about the town of North Reading. Maybe even us collectively, and they're still interested, which is a good thing.
I think that's a good idea. That would give us time, we still have time, today's Tuesday the 22nd, if we schedule it for the 30th for the interviews. Gives us a week to spend some time with each one of these candidates, bring them into town. Because I would suppose if your thought process is to do something like that, and the board decides to do that post-election, you're only gonna delay the selection for a longer period of time, and I think the risk there is, I know Mr. Kobayashi, as far as his knowledge, they're not looking, they could be looking somewhere else. So that gives them another 2-3 weeks or so before you could get to that
Well, I
process.
think at that point, I think we could step up the timeline, with the acquiescence of a new member of the board. And again, what we did is we used either a school van or the Council on Aging van to take the people around. And I think letting these two individuals know that that's what the timeline's gonna be, and we expect to have it made within, 3 to 4 weeks because of the timing of the election. I don't think that's it.
I think
If
that's
they
a long-
really want the job.
It's a long time.
3 weeks is a long time?
Yeah, it is. Steve, we have to transition. There's a lot that has to be transitioned here, and we don't know how much longer Greg's gonna be around. We don't know what his job interviews are going, and how they're going, and when he's gonna get a job.
My guess is, Mr. Valiakonis has 30 years in the business, and he's not, as he leads, exits the doorway, not all that knowledge goes with him. I believe he's gonna be a resource to the new individual. As he has handled himself professionally to date, I would expect him to do the same thing, and it would be, available to whoever the new town administrator is going to be. I don't mean to speak for him.
I would say, Mr. Messeri and I spent an hour and a half, 2 hours, Mr. Valiakonis on Friday, sort of getting the first go-around in terms of what he sees to be so-called loose ends. And I came away from meeting with him for an hour and a half or so on Tuesday, an hour and a half to 2 hours on Friday, with just an overwhelming feeling that there's a lot there, and as Mr. Prisco has indicated, there's a lot in manila files that I'd rather have the new person coming on board have more time to spend with this gentleman than less to ease that transition.
And how do
and
we
to get out.
propose doing that under the budget? We're gonna look for
I
another
think-
transfer
I think
from the finance committee?
If need be, certainly. But I think there's a way that can be done. I think we can cross that bridge. But I think the more time the new person has to spend with Mr. Valiakonis to get someone up to speed before July 1st hits, is better off for the entire community. So,
I think the other thing you need to look at too is whoever the person is, successful candidate is, they have to give, I would
They're
assume.
not an employee, either one.
They're not given 2 weeks' notice.
Correct.
Yeah.
They're both in pretty high-level jobs, so they're not just given
That's
2
right, we
weeks'
gotta
notice.
take that into account. It would be wrong of us to take that lightly, to let him go out the door without having a transition. Did you think we weren't gonna have a transition, Mr. O'Leary? Did you think we were just gonna bring in a new person after Greg left? I mean, you have to have a
Well,
transition.
first of all, I would hope that we'd be hiring someone professional who can understand what's going on here, understands the finances, municipal finances, things. Now, the nuances as far as the issues that are specific to North Reading, they're not new to a pro who knows what they're doing and been involved in the town. Town of Tingsboro, probably about the same size as us. I don't know, Mr. Durkin, I believe, used to be a city councilor in Peabody years ago. But other than that, I don't know what other his municipal experience was. I'm familiar with the name. So it's, but again, as far as the transition goes, we would be fortunate to have a transition of any length of time. But once again, I think anything that comes up, I think Greg would be available for a phone call and a chit-chat with whomever the individual is. I would hope that we're hiring someone with some experience who knows how to handle municipal government. and knows, Mass DOR regulations, and we'll work with Liz as far as that goes. So, again, I guess I'm not as concerned, only because I've seen it before. And again, when people have come in, and, yeah, there's been some bumps in the road as far as the transition goes, but there's also been some pretty good people who have had a long tenure here. And again, we hire pros, and they adapt very well and very easily and readily. So, we're talking 2 weeks from today is an election. We're talking not doing anything for at least a week. And all of a sudden, we need to fast track it. To me, I just think if we really want the representatives of the community to be a party to this, I think we should have the transition to the new member of the board and have them be a part of the process. Because I think it's fair to the two individuals that are running. I think it's fair to the community. I mean, this is one more thing that the public will be able to decide on who do they want sitting here. Because if we fast track it, these people, one of these two individuals aren't going to have any say at all. I don't think that's fair. And I think that's a decision that the public should choose wisely as to who they want representing them on the Board of Selectmen to help make this choice. And I don't believe 2 weeks is a big deal. Actually, 1 week is a big deal.
Well, I don't see it as a fast track, so.
We have a difference of opinion, right? And again, I don't
see it on a fast
have
track.
the same sense of urgency, that other members have apparently. And I guess, we have a difference of opinion, or appears to have a difference of opinion as to whether or not the new member of the board should have say. And we're not talking about, two green members of the board. I mean, both of these gentlemen have served on this board before. They understand the charter, they understand what the role of the town administrator is supposed to be, a clear understanding of town government, so they're not coming in green. And they can lend something to the process rather than trying to come up to speed on things. Both of them have served here before. So again, I would suggest that
Well, what's on
we
the table
welcome
is
these
the
two
30th.
candidates and suggest that the process is gonna start the day after the election.
Maybe there's some middle ground here. There's no reason why we can't invite these individuals in before the board changes, to meet department heads, to tour the town, which I think is a good idea, by the way. And, if we can't arrange a date, before the election, then after the election, I don't think we're gonna see much difference in terms of the appointment, whoever that person's gonna be. It's up to those two people to convince the board, whether it's the current board or a new board, that they're deserving of the job. So,
Mr. Prisco.
Can you just explain that process to me? It's supposed to be an open meeting. So if we jump in a van, open meeting, does everybody that shows up has to get in the same van? How does that work?
Maybe Mr. O'Leary, Mr. Misery could.
I
speak
don't
to
I
that.
know,
However
I'm not.
You don't need a school bus. What you need is an itinerary as to where you're gonna be at approximately what time. If someone wants to follow us around or, observe, they're more than welcome to do so. Yeah, it would be posted if a majority of the board's gonna be present on the tour. Absolutely. And basically, you have a schedule. This is where we're gonna go. And you try and keep the timelines.
I think the value of it is, and working around the logistics of the open meeting law, okay, is that rather than, except for Joe and I who've seen these candidates once already, you have the opportunity to, get to meet them on a more personal level during this kind of a tour, and then a formal interview. So I think there's some value to that. I can't disagree with that suggestion.
I agree with it too.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I just want to understand logistically how it would work.
So it's been done before, and
So who's taking that charge?
I think we're doing it backwards personally. Why don't we-
I
Doing what better?
I'd rather set a date, whatever, for interviews, whether that's pre or post-election, and then let's work backwards to those logistics.
You don't disagree, you should do that first,
Oh, no.
Oh, okay,
No, no,
okay.
no. I'm in agreement with Mr. O'Leary on that aspect.
Yeah, so, what's been proposed is April 30th.
Well, that's what I had suggested, but
It's been proposed.
With the
I'm
exception
okay.
of the next 3 days, I am not available, I'm available.
So you could make the 30th.
April 30th is a Wednesday, you're saying?
that's correct.
Again, I would propose that, you know, we'd set it up so that if Mr. Messeri chooses to participate in the process, he's able to do so, you know, as far as touring the town.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Uh,
what I said is that
next 3 days.
I will be in recovery.
I'd invite these gentlemen in on Saturday. We're going with the 30th, and invite these gentlemen on Saturday. We could spend time with them on Saturday.
No,
Oh, go ahead.
To me, I'd rather have them available to go to the senior center when the senior center's active. I'd rather have them
Okay.
Yeah, oh, I agree.
during the course of the day, you know, see what the goings on
Yeah.
in town. You know, visit the DPW garage, or, you know, do whatever they need to do, or,
Right.
but see it rather than just on a Saturday
Monday.
morning,
Yeah, we do Monday.
you know.
What, Monday?
Monday.
This Monday?
Again, I've got,
Someone's gonna contact the
This coming Monday?
candidates.
I've got.
You can't do them together either.
Right.
No. Just to let you know, this Monday and Tuesday, the 28th and 29th, I have commitments that I cannot get out of personally. The rest of the week is open. And Tuesday, the 6th, is election day, plus I have a exit meeting at a bank, so
You're not holding signs, are you?
I don't know. Not this year.
So what about the
So-
Wednesday, Friday?
So getting back to the original question that the chairman had, to me, I don't think the calendar's that drawn out, and I believe that the new members of the board, the new member of the board should be included in the decision-making process. There'll be a reorganizational meeting on Wednesday, the 7th. If you want to set up a meeting for Thursday, the 8th, for interviews.
How would you suggest,
That moves things up to a little over 2 weeks from today.
I would suggest bringing the candidates in on Wednesday, the 30th, and interviews on the Friday, the 2nd.
That works for me.
Again, Mr. Chairman, I move that a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen be posted for Thursday, May 8th, for purposes of interviewing the finalists as suggested by the screening committee for the position of town administrator.
Motion. Do we hear a second? Do we hear a second? Do not hear a second.
I can't do May 8th. My son's award night at senior.
Advise that then be the following Monday.
Mr. Chairman,
May the 12th. Which is probably a regular scheduled meeting now, so.
Now you're on to May 12th.
Oh, yeah, May 12th. May 12th is final interview.
We have a motion, final interviews, May 12th. Do I have a second? Do I hear a second? I don't hear a second.
I'll make a motion
Mr.
that we hold the interviews on the 30th, April 30th.
I thought the tour was gonna be the 30th.
Can you do the tour in a day?
I think you need to give yourself time to schedule the members of the board and,
I suggest the 30th and the 2nd. Is that what your motion was going to be?
Mr. Chairman,
That we do the
Tour was-
tours on the 30th
You know, we have.
Interviews
and
on
the
the 2nd.
interviews on the 2nd.
second
it's a
that.
Friday.
30th.
That we may not.
Yeah.
I'll second that. That works for my schedule.
I have a motion for tours on the 30th, interviews on the 2nd,
My second.
correct? Is that what I had heard?
Mhm.
And I have a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. O'Leary.
I think for the sake of 4 days, to do it once again, I'll be a broken record here this evening. For the sake of 4 days now, I don't think expediting the process by 4 days, is really gonna change the outcome, but I believe that the new member of the board should have a say, and I think it's unfortunate. It appears as though the majority of the board is not held in. With all due respect to you, Mr. Chairman, you're not gonna be here. You're not gonna be here. Someone else is gonna be sitting in your seat for 3 years and have no say over 4 days.
Well,
I think that's unfortunate.
I think I have a pretty good idea what this community is looking for, having sat here for 6 years.
So do these people. Both of
I'm
them
speaking
said.
about myself. You just made a suggestion that I won't be here.
Right.
Having sat here for 6 years and with the community supporting me for 2 elections, I think I have a very good idea of what the community is looking for and what the community needs in terms of a town administrator. I'm sure these gentlemen do too, but I'm sitting here and I'd like to conduct these final interviews prior to my term expiring.
In the general populace and the electorate is gonna be making a decision on a new member of this board 4 days after your suggested date.
Sure. And we have two.
And that would be a major decision in their process, and as far as determining who they're gonna vote for, as to who they wanna sit here and making this choice.
I'm going
And I
about,
think you're taking that away from the general populace and the electorate
I
at this
don't,
particular point
I
in
don't
time.
believe so.
Well, you are. If you're not
I've
giving them
always-
a choice, you're taking it away.
I've always, every decision I've made has always been in the best interest of this community. This decision here, I take very, very seriously. I will not change what I've done in 6 years in sitting on this
I'm
board.
not suggesting that you
It'll
do.
be in the best interest of this community. That's how I'll make this decision. So,
Yeah.
Mr. Prisker.
This isn't about you, and it isn't about them. It's about getting this responsibility that we took on as a board, get it completed for the best interest of the town. These 2 candidates are welcome to participate through the process. They can attend, they can listen, they can interact.
How can they interact?
Well, if we're gonna be out in the
We open it up
public.
to these gentlemen, we're gonna open it up to everybody else too.
We are opening it up.
I'd be
You
careful.
said it. We're opening it up to everyone else. We're gonna have a schedule. When we get over to the senior center, they're welcome to be at the senior center. They can talk to the individual. They can ask them questions through the process. When we sit down in here and have the formal interviews, they can sit in the crowd and listen. They can participate. We need to continue to move forward. Take the charter that we took on to hire a new town administrator. This board did. We need to complete that process sooner than later, in the best interest of the town. And they can be here every step of the way, absolutely. They have that right, and they should, and I think it's wonderful that they want to participate.
Any further
It's not what
I'm
we
ready to
want.
vote on the
It's
motion.
whether they should be given the right to participate, and we're taking that away. We're
Hearing
taking
no-
it away, and we're not giving the public the say as much as they could have right now.
Well,
I don't
that's
understand
not
that
true,
part.
because the public is the people who
Yeah.
elected Mr. Delaney.
Right, and they're gonna select his replacement 4 days after the
But you're
suggested
saying,
date.
but you're saying, I mean, this is a gentleman who served 2 terms, one overwhelmingly, so he has the faith of the community. He's gonna do what's in the best interest of the community. He's done that since day one. So I take a little bit of offense to you saying that, that the general public is gonna select who they want to do it. They're selected based on the 2 people who decided to run.
Which is
This
always
gentleman,
been the
this
case.
gentleman is given 6 years of his time, and he was elected too. So
Yeah.
I'm on board with going forward on my motion.
That's evident.
Without any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
No.
It's 4-1. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again to the screening committee. Appreciate
Thank
every
you.
moment of your time.
Doing capital or?
No, we have a hearing. We have a 7:30.
We have
Oh, yeah.
We actually have a 7:15.
7:15, that's right.
public. Oh, actually, before we get to that, can we take, Mr. Ferriello's here, if we can go to item 4, sign the annual town election warrant. Mr. Valiakonis, do you have the town election warrant? Oh, it's right there, Mr. Fode.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about
It's brief.
that. Sorry.
You were looking for the town meeting warrant.
Yes, I was looking for the town meeting warrant. Mr. Chairman, I move to sign the May 6, 2014 annual town election warrant.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Yeah, indeed.
I know.
Okay, you witnessing?
Make your X and move on.
Thank you.
I signed. Thank you.
Something fall? Someone drop a pen? Nope. Right, one determined today.
We're going to,
7:15.
I will pass it along.
Okay. We'll go to item 7 on the agenda. It was noted as the 7:15 public hearing, RMLD Verizon, number 1928, relocate pole on Haverhill Street. Is there a representative here from Verizon or RMLD? Mr. Valiakonis? Didn't we expect to have someone here?
RMD is always invited. They always show up.
I know, so I'm surprised not to see him.
Perhaps they got into the same car as Mr. Kobayashi this evening.
I think they went to Tingsboro. Oh.
But usually.
Usually they do appear, so.
They do, and we send out notification to the public so that if anyone is here, I suggest perhaps the comment be taken. And if there's objection, that the board simply defer it until their next meeting.
Is there anyone here from the public who's here for this
I
particular?
gotta read it.
Oh,
gotta read
sorry.
the public hearing.
All right, jumping ahead of myself. I'll get used to this.
Notice of public hearing, according to Chapter 166, Section 22 of Massachusetts General Laws, a public hearing will be held by the Board of Selectmen at North Reading Town Hall, room 14, 235 North Street, on Tuesday, April 22nd, 2014, at 7:15 PM, on the joint petition of Verizon New England, Inc. and Reading Municipal Light Department to relocate a pole on Haverhill Street as described in the RMLD Plan Number 1928 dated 2/26/2014. Notice sent to abutters in RMLD on 4/9/2014.
Is there anyone here in the audience who's here for this particular hearing?
That's just the
We're
first.
kind of here, we wanted to know whether we're gonna move it or whatever they're gonna do with it.
Okay.
But,
No, but I think we have the information
We have
concerning
the
that.
maps.
We do. That's just the furthest, just two.
Separate.
So these are the ones that, Railroad Ave?
yeah.
So this one,
is to provide the right of way for the new road.
Yes.
correct.
We have a map, if you care to come up and take a look, if you like.
Generally, I have an idea of what we're doing here. Nothing's changed on the plan, correct?
On the
No.
original.
On the,
I'm not
the
a-
project?
I'm not aware that it's
Yeah. Move south 18 feet
anything
south.
different.
What's that?
18 feet south.
You're not aware of
I'm not aware of anything different.
You're speaking in terms of the project itself that's down there, not the pole, but the project? No.
Pole itself is
The
being,
roads aren't changing or anything?
no.
Oh, okay.
The pole is being moved 18 feet south,
So it doesn't affect anything, really,
except for the pole being moved.
Is it one or two? Which one are we?
That's
We're
just
doing-
one, there's another
Yeah,
one.
there's separate hearings,
Separate
so this is
hearings.
number 1928.
That's this one here.
Board members, any comment or input? Okay. Mr. Fode, you have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant the joint petition of Reading Municipal Light Department and Verizon New England, Inc. to relocate a pole on Havel Street as shown in Plan Number 1928 dated 2/26/2014.
Thank you very much.
Have a motion? Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second.
With the new roads,
Any further discussion? No. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Now to the 7:20 public hearing, RMLD Verizon, number 1929, locate pole on Haverhill Street. Mr. Fode?
Notice of public hearing. In accordance with Chapter 166, Section 22 of the Massachusetts General Laws, a public hearing will be held by the Board of Selectmen at North Reading Town Hall, Room 14, 235 North Street, on Tuesday, April 22nd, 2014, at 7:20 PM, on the joint petition of Verizon New England, Inc. and Reading Municipal Light Department for a new pole to be located on Haverhill Street as described in the RMLD Plan Number 1929 dated 2/26/2014. Notice sent to RMLD and abutters on 4/9/2014.
I believe I saw Mr. O'Leary showed you folks this pole that's being moved to. You're all, any questions
Doesn't
concerning it?
affect anything, no concerns.
Just the pole, as Mr. Fode said, right? Any motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant the joint petition of Municipal Light Department and Verizon New England, Inc. to locate a new pole on Haverhill Street as shown in Plan Number 1929 dated 2/26/2014.
We have a motion?
Second.
And I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Going now to 7:30, public hearing, show cause hearing, sports stakes, sports spirits and stakes. We have a representative from, okay, and we have Lieutenant Romeo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Mr. Romeo, I
Mr.
think.
Chairman?
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, could you just allow me to introduce some of the exhibits and the dates that are involved here? No.
certainly.
Thank you very much.
I've got those.
First, Mr. Valiakonis, do we have a public hearing notice on this, or?
No,
is this just-
there's
okay.
not. The board needs to act in a public session, but it's not a posted hearing notice.
Very- thank
That
you.
was one of the things I wanted to state. Back in, on January 31st, the North Reading Police Department conducted an alcohol compliance check throughout the community. Chief Murphy communicated to me on February 12th that in fact that there was a violation at this address involving sale or delivery of beverages to persons under age 21. We did send out notice to the establishment indicating that there would be a public hearing that will be held before the board. We were contacted by their legal counsel, who's here this evening, indicating they asked for a reschedule to Tuesday, April 22nd at 7:30 PM. We did validate that by certified mail so that all of the proper procedural actions have taken place to this point. And Lieutenant Romeo is here this evening on behalf of the police department to present evidence with regard to the alcohol compliance check that was held on the 31st of January and respond to any questions the board has. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valiakonis. Lieutenant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lieutenant Romeo for the North Reading Police. As part of an ongoing effort to reduce the accessibility of alcohol to minors, the North Reading Police conducts random alcohol compliance checks to all liquor establishments throughout the year. These checks are followed under the guidelines of the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission. We follow their guidelines exactly. And part of that guideline is that we don't alter the appearance of the underage person that's going into the establishment. No fake identifications are used, or no misleading information by the undercover person going into the establishment. Basically, they go in, sit down, ask for alcohol, and see if they're served. On the night in question, January 31st, we did enter the store with an undercover subject at 7:20, and he sat at the main bar room and was served alcohol by one of the servers. Once again, that is a violation of MGL Chapter 138, alcohol laws, procuring alcohol to a minor. Once the subject was served, he exited immediately, notified my detectives who entered the store, identified the server and the manager on premises. They were served legal notice that they had served a minor. Subsequent to that, as I said earlier, that the procurement of alcohol to a minor is a violation of Chapter 138. And the police department would just like to remind the board that of the potential ramifications of this action. The actions of this establishment and server had the potential to cause serious injury and/or death. These actions also reach the level of criminal activity. Violations of 138 are arrestable on site. So the server and/or the manager on site were subject to arrest that night for the service. We obviously opted to come before the board with the violation, but the criminal end of it is technically still open. Although we haven't decided to move forward on that yet, but we're bringing the license issue before the board tonight.
So if I heard you correctly, reading the materials we had, the individual went in, was not asked for an ID, and was served.
Correct.
Okay. And then was there a follow-up subsequent to that after the individual came out and reported back to?
It's part of the procedure, not only by the North Reading Police, but the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission. They then go in and notify with the individual, ask them who actually served. He points out who the server was and the manager on site. They are both then questioned by the detectives, issued a formal notice of the violation, and the officers get the identification of both parties.
What was the cooperation and non-cooperation at the point in time your department and the ABCC went back in from the manager and the server?
There's nothing noted in the file that there were any type of adversarial relationship. As I said, this would have been subject to immediate arrest had there not been some level of cooperation.
Okay. Thank you. Board members, anything for the lieutenant? And there was, from the packet, I gather that there was one prior violation, similar nature, from this establishment under the same manager or general manager. I know it may have gone back a number of years.
I believe that is the case, Mr. Chairman, that there was a prior violation. It's noted in the file.
Right.
The chief has also done some research and has notified me that there was, over a 5-year period, there were incidents regarding, 5 incidents logged regarding patrons requiring medical assistance or being intoxicated. There were 4 responses in the parking lot for fights, and there was 1 report of a passive assault and battery. Subsequently, there was also 12 responses to that location for noise complaints by the neighborhood. And there was 1 prior violation noted in the file. Excuse me 1 second. That looks like it was in 2009, I believe.
No.
2000.
2000.
2000, excuse me.
May of 2000.
Okay. And what was the nature of that violation? Do you have any details concerning that?
We had a hard time trying to find our records because it was a different computer server at the time. But my recollection, having been involved with it, was very similar in nature to this incident.
And that resulted in a 3-day license suspension for this
That's my
establishment?
recollection, yes.
It did, and I want to validate that the lieutenant's recollection is correct, according to our files also.
Thank you, Mr. Belkacos. Thank you, Lieutenant. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Michael McCarthy. I'm an attorney from Wakefield, and I represent the licensee, Edward Fitzsimmons, who's here with me tonight.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, and also thank you for the courtesy of extending the hearing for the 2-week period.
Certainly.
It's appreciated. We don't dispute, for the purposes of the hearing tonight, we don't dispute anything that the lieutenant just said to you. The fact of the matter is that my client, who can say it himself, and the management at the restaurant do appreciate the seriousness of the matter, do appreciate that there should be, and in fact, there is a zero tolerance policy in place at the restaurant. There was an incident 10 years ago. I think it's accurately reported. I would point out that it was 10 years ago where well, 14 years ago.
10 to 14.
I didn't want to be wrong. But the fact of the matter is that there is a zero tolerance in place. All the servers at the restaurant, including the 10-year employee who was alleged to have served the minor, are tip certified. There was a violation of the zero tolerance policy. The server was terminated the next day, despite the fact that she had been a long-term employee, but zero tolerance is zero tolerance. They're all tip certified. There are monthly meetings conducted by Mr. Fitzsimmons and the management, stressing the importance of the fact that a number of important things, but not the least of which is the fact that there should be no service to minors. They have had a good record. I think, as the lieutenant said, there is periodic compliance checks done by the community. There are periodic compliance checks done by ABCC. There hasn't been a mistake made in 10 years, or 14 years rather. Perhaps there was one made here. Apparently there was. And the management did what they could do, which is number one, to terminate the employee for violation of zero tolerance, and to impress upon the rest of the employees, and certainly it's impressed upon the management as well, the fact that this can't happen at all. So we appreciate that. We don't say that it should have happened. We don't try to excuse the fact that it might have happened, but they're doing what they can do, simply the best that they can do it. As I said, the employees since that time have been, they're aware of what's going on, the fact that everyone's job is at stake, the management license is at stake, and that it's a very, very serious matter. It's not taken lightly at all. I think the last time this happened, as town manager said, there was a 3-day suspension. I did a little bit of research, and I think the last time that I was able to find in the ABCC record that a matter like this came up in the town, and I think it was more, it's an ABCC decision dated May 24th, 2010, and it looks like it might have been a violation of the ABCC compliance check, but nonetheless, what the penalty was in that case was a 3-day suspension. That suspension was held in abeyance, provided that there were no further violations within the next 2-year period. So we would respectfully submit that might be a good outcome here, that there is certainly some action taken by the board, that there is a penalty, hanging over the head, so to speak, of the licensee, but which recognizes also the fact that they have had a good record for 14 years, that they did do the right thing as soon as they learned of the incident. And it's not too much of a penalty directly on the licensee, but certainly it's formal action. It creates a record and a probationary period with a penalty. So that's our suggestion. We appreciate your consideration. Happy to answer any questions as well.
Okay. Board members, any questions for Mr. McCarthy, Attorney McCarthy?
What was being proposed? What was proposed by you again?
He's suggesting, similar to what Eastgate Liquors had incurred back in 2010, which was a 3-day suspension of their license, but that was held in abeyance for a 2-year period, and provided there was no further violations, they would never suffer the 3-day license loss. The problem I have with that is that they've already suffered a 3-day license suspension. I know it was some time ago. It's under the same management. I don't believe it was probably the first time this server served anyone that was underage. She happened to get caught because there was this operation in effect, and we appreciate that by our department in the ABCC. The way I look at it, it has to be zero tolerance, and I think there has to be some consequence. My personal opinion, being one member of this board, there has to be a consequence that's greater and more severe than what was incurred back in the year 2000. I appreciate the fact that the step was taken to terminate the server at that time, but I can't tolerate it.
Could I just ask Lieutenant Romeo, Mr. Chairman? Sure. The chief referenced some sort of a similar violation in 2009, but we don't know. We don't have any other record of it. This is in his.
The 2000 records we were unable to locate.
No, 2009. In the chief's letter to the town administrator, going to third paragraph, it says, to my knowledge, there has been at least one similar violation in the past 5 years at this address. In 2009, DBA The Big Dog was a violation committing an illegality on the licensed premises to wit, Chapter 138, Section 34, sale or delivery to a person under 21 years of age. Documentation included, although, let's see here. 14.
The only thing that I have, Mr. O'Leary, excuse me, in our records is during that 2009 compliance check, there was a violation at a package store.
Right,
So-
but I'm looking at the
Yeah.
chief's letter, and it references at this address. So I guess maybe that was a misunderstanding.
We believe it was. And we don't think there was any incident in 2000,
Sports things, that was the only, trying to reconcile the information that was provided and some knowledge in the past 5 years. Maybe in the past 5 years should have been a period. No, it says in 2009, the big dog was in violation, but.
Yeah.
But you didn't have any other records,
The
Lieutenant?
records I have, Mr. O'Leary, only indicate a package.
Correct.
We went through the file, there's, all paper files, there was no record of any incident in 2000.
Mr. Fitzsimmons is here, he'll testify. if you'd like
I
him
want
to.
to tell you there was no violation in 2000. It was 2000, we opened in 99, it was right after we opened up. Welcome to the town.
There's one other thing, if I may, Mr. Chairman, that I failed to mention during my first presentation was that this compliance check is advertised in the local newspaper ahead of time. It's not required by law, but it's kind of a heads up to all liquor establishments that we're gonna be out there. So it was advertised, and it was really no big secret that we were out there.
I think it was a recommendation that one of the previous boards here, that we weren't out to surprise any one of
Correct.
the local establishments, you know, when we're doing these checks and just.
No, we don't suggest that anyone was, that the process wasn't appropriate, right? We're not here to object or
Right.
complain.
Lieutenant, it's advertised at specific dates, or when it's gonna
Just
occur?
over the next 30 days, I think
Really?
that's how it was worded, yeah.
Oh.
I think we may have had a copy of it.
It's actually part of your packet, the advertisement, I believe.
It's there, yeah.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Board members?
It's clear to me that whether it's the management of the facility or the individual who just, you know, got careless, or, you know, what we don't know is if this has gone on for a long period of time.
Lieutenant Romeo, how often do we do these compliance checks? Is it annually?
Sometimes it's more than Mr. O'Leary, and we also do not only the pouring establishments, but the package stores and the liquor stores as well.
Right.
And hopefully the private clubs as well.
Okay.
But sometimes it's semi-annually.
All right, so we do it at least once a year.
Yeah, it's based, we have some grant money that's covering this now, so it's more frequent than normal.
The ABCC does it once a year according to their information list.
Just as from an administrative standpoint, if the board were to hand out a suspension, the ABCC allows for a payment in lieu. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I am familiar with it.
Okay. Would that be the intent in order to
No,
stay
honestly,
open?
we'd have to.
Or are you
So
gonna take the weekend to close and clean the place? You know.
I'm honestly not having the ball. I mean, I don't know. I truly don't know.
Just for the information of the members of the board, once we render a decision, it goes to the ABCC, then the license holder then has the opportunity to take the suspension, close, not serve alcohol. They don't necessarily have to close the doors, just not serve alcohol for whatever the period of suspension is, or pay a fine in lieu of suspension to the Commonwealth, which is based upon some formula based on revenue. So if they chose to do that, it would still cost them money out of their pocket. They would not necessarily have to stop serving alcohol.
I'll wait till after the public hearing is closed.
To what?
It's not a public hearing.
I didn't.
He said he was gonna wait after the public hearing. It's a show cause hearing. We have to determine what, if any, sanction we're going to
Well, it
impose.
says public hearing, that's why I thought you were gonna close it before we render the decision, okay?
In my opinion, 3 days. I know it was some time ago, 3 days. They already received that. This license, I view it as a privilege, and I'm sure you do too. It's an unfortunate situation, but obviously 3 days wasn't enough. I think something in the range of 5 days over a weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I think that sends a message. it's an impact on the business, but I think, although it wasn't the manager or the ownership that did the surfing, they're ultimately responsible. That's what I think would be the appropriate sanction in this regard. Mr. Prisco?
I don't disagree that there should be a suspension. I'm not so sure I would be on board with 5 days. It's been 14 years since they've had an issue. I definitely think we should have a suspension. I'm more in favor of 3 days, and I would even propose maybe we consider doing it over Memorial Day weekend. Making 3 days over the Memorial Day weekend is what I would be in favor of.
I would say if we're going to do it, we do it sooner. I mean, we got hockey playoff season, so forth. I think Memorial Day may be a light day. People may be going away.
I'm not necessarily against the 5, but right now I'm in favor more of 3 than I am 5.
Okay.
Just because it's been 14 years, I think they understand the severity of it. They took the action, appropriate action right away. They didn't have any objection with the police department. You know, they still have a business to run. I think they understand it, but I definitely would be more in favor of a 3 day versus a 5.
I can support 3 days.
As can I.
First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the difficulty in running this type of an establishment and the challenges that it presents, and that's all part of doing the business, obviously doing business. And to me, it's somewhat remarkable. I don't think that we should necessarily hold against them something that happened 14 years ago at all. You know, at some point, there has to be a forgive and forget. You know, 14 years is a long look back. And if you're going to look back that far, and that's why I asked the Lieutenant, you know, how often do we check the compliance here? It seems to be at least semi-annually, in addition to an annual visitation from the ABCC. So they're being looked at least 3 times during the year, sporadically here. So they, along with a lot of our other local establishments, have done a remarkable job of keeping themselves in check, along with the official checks done by our police department and the ABCC. I think that needs to be acknowledged. At the same time, we also need to acknowledge the responsibility, you know, to the community and ensuring that there is some sort of punishment. You know, I'd like to see some sort of progressive discipline of some sort, and I think 3 may be a little bit heavy in this particular instance where it's been such a long period of time since any violation. You know, again, they can find a way out of it too. But you know, I think we can still send a message. They've been a long-established business in the community. They've kept their nose pretty clean, and I think that needs to be acknowledged and appreciated too. So it's, you know, with that, I'm thinking something less than 3. I don't know what the other members of the board's feelings are, but I think, you know, 14 years look back is a substantial period of time. And with the compliance checks that are in place, which is at least 3 times a year now, it sounds like, doing a pretty good job of self-policing. So.
Mr. Fode?
Steve, I agree with your assessment in the fact that, you know, let's not be, you know, let's kind of forgive and not forget, but forgive for sins past. My issue is, and I didn't know that they advertise. I mean, they advertise that they're doing this, and, you know, I mean, shame on anybody who, if it's advertised and still isn't on high alert.
May I respond to that? I think they're on high alert all the time. The advertising didn't make a difference because they do the same thing all the time, which is they have the monthly meetings. I would suggest to you, if they didn't do that, and they came in and said, hey, there's gonna be a check within the next 30 days, everybody shut down, then the person probably wouldn't get served. I think the server just made a mistake, a bad mistake, and get fired for it, you know? So, but again, you know, we're not, that's in mitigation, that's not an excuse.
Yeah. I can appreciate the fact that you're sitting here telling us that, you know, the mistake was made, and
Yeah.
we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Where we at, gentlemen?
Well, I make a motion to suspend the license for 3 days over a period May 9th to May 11th.
Have a motion?
What happened with Memorial Day, no? You made a Memorial Day?
Well, just to, I was trying to meet some middle ground with the chairman. He felt that that was a little late in the process, so I like Memorial Day myself, but I'm trying to be reasonable
I'm
here,
not
so.
opposed to that either, Memorial Day.
Okay. I will change my motion then if I have some support on that to be May 23rd to the
Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
23rd, the Friday, to Monday, Sunday, close, so it'd be 12 a.m. May 23rd, Friday, May 23rd, and ending at 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, May 25th.
So you give them the holiday, that's nice.
Giving them the holiday.
Is it 23rd, 24th, 25th?
Correct. 12 a.m., May 23rd, ending at 11:59 p.m., Sunday, May 25th.
Have a motion? Do I have a second?
Sure, I'll second for the purpose of discussion. Sure.
I have a second. Discussion. Hearing none?
Well,
You?
give me a second.
What do you think, Saturday, Sunday, Monday?
No, I'm fine with it.
Okay. No further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks for the consideration.
Thank you
I
for your
appreciate
cooperation.
the openness, all right? Good luck.
Lieutenant Romeo, thank you.
Thank you.
This thing has been burning me all night. Finally, it's warm
Anyone here for
outside.
public
I got a
comment?
heater in
Public
front of
comment,
me.
Oh, cross that up. All right,
quickly.
8 PM.
Wow, it's good. It's only 10 minutes. It's
Meet with the
great.
Capital Improvement Planning Committee. Review the FY 2015 capital recommendations. Mr. Keller, welcome.
Thank you.
Back up, get almost.
I can't read that, so I got my own.
We can roll it back, maybe, you think?
No, that's quite all right.
Put in the FY15 folder, there was one update to.
Oh, good. I don't need this, right? I can do it. I can get it here.
I think you all have this in your packets.
I just like to make the notes. So it's,
So in the FY15 budget folder is the complete updated one as of today.
thank you.
First, I would like to thank the members of the Capital Improvements Planning Committee, Mike Conley, Janine Embriano, Abby Hurlbut, Bob Messeri, Joe Fode, Greg Valuetonis, and last but not least,
Most important.
Liz Paveo, who did all of the heavy lifting here. Put all of this together, did a wonderful job on the report. This is our second year as a committee going through this process of looking at budget requests from the departments. This year, we added expanded it and asked for 3-year budgets. We're going to be talking about tonight is just the fiscal 15 budget. The committee has more work to do, and after a little bit of a break, we're going to go back and look at the fiscal 16, fiscal 17, and whatever items in the fiscal 15 request that we were not able to recommend because of budget constraints. Obviously, we didn't have enough money to do everything. The general government and schools had a total of 23 requests for a little over $1.5 million. The Hillview Commission had 1 request for $1 million for an irrigation system on the course, and the Water Enterprise had 8 items totaling nearly $1.3 million. On the we'll go into the details of the. Why don't we keep the ranking sheet up, if you would, Liz? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Of the items requested by the general government and the schools, the 23 items requested, we're recommending funding 13 of those, the total of $819,500. And the detail of them is in front of you, and it's on the schedule, which is in the packet you were given as well. I won't necessarily go through all of these, but just to kind of hit some of the highlights in here. From the IT department, this is an annual request just to keep the computer equipment up to date. We had a similar item last year, I think it was about $35,000, and we recommended funding that. The turnout gear for the fire department, very important. Each of the firefighters has 2 sets of turnout gear. One set is 5 years old now, the other set is 10 years old. By regulation, they have to be replaced after 10 years, so we're recommending a new set of turnout gear for the firefighters, and they'll take their current gear and it will move to a secondary function, but they will have 2 sets of gears, then one new and one 5 years old, and that'll take care of us for another 5 years. The police department is looking to upgrade their radios. The chief brought us a request that was about twice this amount. In speaking with him, he felt that it would be acceptable to do half of it this year and half of it next year. So that will be something going into fiscal 16. We'll have a high priority on our recommendation list. The town road program, the $165,000 here, there is a Chapter 90 allocation of about $506,000. So when you combine the 165 and the 506, you get about $672,000 in appropriation. The plan that Mr. Carnevale gave us for the fiscal 15 road work was $713,000. So we're getting about 94% of the road request into this budget. We think that's a pretty good number. We wanted to be able to bring other items into the budget, not to expend it all there. As we cut back the police radios and deferred some of that till next year, we thought we could, our recommendation was to hold off on some of the road work too, so we could fill this up a little bit more fully. Computer replacements for the school department, a phone upgrade for the fire department, some work on the air conditioning in the fire station, which is very, very old systems that we're recommending replacing. Some work on the drain systems, a piece of equipment for the DPW, some work on town hall on the back doors that are part of the original building, not ADA compliant and are in need of some replacement. Some repairs to the exterior of the public safety building in the dormers and the cupola that need to have some work done on them for them to remain functional. Replacing the senior van, this is a carryover from last year's request. We did not fund it last year, but we had a discussion with Elder Services, as we did with all of the departments, and were persuaded that this was in need of replacement. It's got some water leaks in it, and it really doesn't suit the needs of the Elder Services. And a major item for on stormwater, a culvert that needs to be replaced. We put this on because the risk is a much more expensive project later down the road. If this fails and the road fails, that we're going to have to do this, and we just can't delay it. It's an item that can be bonded for 30 years, so the cost of it is going to be spread out over that period of time. In the Hillview, as I said, the only recommendation there was the irrigation systems, big number, $1 million. We met with representatives of the Hillview Commission. We're persuaded that they need to do this to maintain the quality of the course, and this will be bonded over 15 years. The items in the water department primarily are taking care of the water system that we currently have, recognizing that down the road we're probably going to be doing something different. But in the meantime, we have to take care of the water tower, which was, when we saw the pictures of it, it was a little bit frightening that the anchors that hold this to the concrete pad, I wouldn't stand next to it, but and some of the other water requests there are to take care of the current system to make sure that we're getting the best use out of the water system. Major water and sewer, either drinking water or sewer water, I think it's going to have to come up under an entirely different topic, and we will probably have to join with some other parties in town to take a look at that in the future. But for now, as I say, we need to take care of the business at hand. There is also one vehicle in there. There were 2 requested. We looked at the vehicles and thought this was the one that was in most need of replacement. The water requests will all be satisfied through bonding. So that was our recommendation for this year, and we went to try to find a way to have a program that we could fund on a regular basis and have a dependable level of capital improvements every year. And the goal was to leave our debt service for a non-exempt debt at its current level, which is about $1.1 million. On this chart, it's a busy chart, but it's got 3 separate pieces in there, and I'm gonna go through them, not in a lot of detail, but enough so you understand what we're looking at. In the top section of that, where it says beginning balance and then scheduled reductions and ending balance, if you took the debt service that the town is now signed up for, including items from last October's town meeting, the debt service for those items in each of the years is shown starting with $1,289,000. That schedule drops off by an amount every year as items are paid off. So that in 2020, that cohort of items that we have bonded will have the debt service, the annual debt service will be down to $632,000. We then looked at what we're recommending for bonding for fiscal year 15. And if you can slide down, Liz, to the next section in there. The capital spending in fiscal 15, in the bonding section of that, there are 4 items in there, or 4 amounts representing all of the items that we looked at on the previous page that were labeled bond, for a total of $583,000. Some 5-year bondings, some 10, 15, and 30-year bonding. The table above, I hate jumping back and forth, but the table above spreads out the debt service on that bonding over each of the years through 2020. Subsequent to this year, we made some assumptions about a level of bonding. What we're trying to do, as I said, is to maintain the debt service at $1.1 million. In the fiscal 15 capital acquisition for the government, and general government and schools, we're funding that from free cash, which will be available at town meeting of $137,000, and a budget appropriation of $100,000, we're not going to quite use all of that, and bonding of the $583,000. It's our hope to build on this model going forward so that we can have a sustainable capital program going forward. And as I say, and keep the funding level, the debt service level at $1.1 million. To do that, we need a commitment from the town, and the following is the commitment: that the $100,000 R&A, raise and appropriate, the budgeted amount that's going into the Capital Improvement Stabilization Fund, grow by $25,000 a year. So it'll be $125,000 in fiscal 16, $150 in 17, and so forth. That we dedicate $150,000 from the June town meeting from free cash. We're putting $137,000 in this year. We're hoping to do is to set that at $150,000 a year going forward. And then $200,000 from free cash in October. If we do that, we can build the capital stabilization fund by $1.2 million over the next 6 years. We can reduce the amount of bonding for 5-year purchases from the $210,000 this year to $125,000 in 2020. The idea would be at some point that we don't bond 5-year items, that's on a pay-as-you-go. And we bond items that are going to have lives longer than that, and treat the 5-year as just a recurring item that will be dealt with in the capital budget. As you can see on this table, that if we follow that through, we can hold our capital spending at about 800 and, I can't read that far. Our capital spending before Chapter 90 at $875,000 a year. So we'd have $875,000 a year to put into the items that we looked at. They're going to be more, as I said, we looked at about $1.5 million worth of requests this year. Probably going to look at the same amount next year, and we're going to have to do some paring down, but $875,000 is a pretty good start in trying to address the issues. In addition to that, we would have whatever Chapter 90 money is available. For this purpose, I left it at the award for fiscal 15, which is the roughly $507,000. So we'd have a capital program of nearly $1.4 million a year going forward. An increasing amount of the capital would be paid for in cash, either through free cash or raise and appropriate, and a reduced amount of that would be in bonding. We'd go from $600,000 in 16 down to $500,000 in 20, and the change there is in the 5-year items. As I said, our goal would be not to be bonding 5-year items going forward. In the package you have are descriptions of all of the items that we're planning to, that we're recommending, and if that recommendation is followed, then these would be the items that we'd be dealing with this year. And as I say, we will get back to work on the balance of the fiscal 15 requests and the 16 and 17 over the next month or so. Questions? Mike?
Just a question regarding the turnout gear. So that free cash, is that money that was generated through ALS or?
No. Well, it's money that's free cash in the budget. When the budget is settled at the end of the year, all of the givebacks and the difference between the revenue,
But it's not.
anticipated revenue and the expenses, we have some free cash after snow and ice has been satisfied. Thanks, Lisa.
Mr. Keller,
Yeah.
on the list that the committee voted on to approve,
Yep.
if I look at the last column, average, is that each member?
Yeah,
ranked?
let me give you, what we did is we each individually ranked all of the items that were presented to us, everything on this page. We then, on a scale of 0 to 5, 5 being the highest. We completed that ranking individually. It was put together as a composite. We met, discussed all of the items on there to make sure that if there are any outliers, that we understood why a committee member felt one way, either high or low, where the rest of the committee wasn't at that point. There was a very little disagreement in the ranking. There were a couple of items that there were some outliers on either end of it, but for the most part, the committee, and we each, as I say, individually ranked these. The IT and the fire and the police, for that matter, were virtually 5s. Those were our top priorities, and everybody thought that those items really needed to move forward. We struck the balance at the 819,000 based upon what we could afford. One was what was going to be available in free cash, what we had in the budget for raise and appropriate, the $100,000, and what we could bond and stay within the $1.1 million debt service limitation. And when you do the math on all of that, that's where it comes out. It would have differed if there were items being bonded for a longer time. There you could have more items in here because you've got a longer period to pay for it. But when you've got 5-year items in here, then then that's one of the reasons to get the 5-year items out of here, so you can deal with the major issues.
Happy to see the van in there, that's great for the seniors.
Pardon?
I'm glad you guys decided to move the senior van up this year.
I'm sure that the elder service will be happy for that.
Don,
too.
just,
Yeah.
I think when we talked about this year, we have $100,000 off the top.
Right.
Going into the budget. And the goal was to get to 200, and we decided to break it into 125,
Right.
150, 175, 200. At 200, it's capped at the moment, it's not continuing up the ladder.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I think that's far enough. I would like to see it go up higher than that. I mean, I'd like to do
That's a
it
decision we'll make.
till we get to the point where we don't have any more 5-year items.
Yeah.
And I think that would take more than.
The one thought that I had, though, is as you get rid of the 5-year items,
Mhm.
then the slope of the debt payment, changes.
Absolutely, yep.
And we have to take that into account,
Yep.
too.
Yep.
Any questions, board members?
That's excellent.
But just in relation to the ones that didn't make the cut, have you get those are gridded out to as to when you anticipate those will fall in line, or?
I'm sorry, say again?
These other capital requests
Yeah.
that were submitted,
Right.
have you got those staggered in at some point?
The ones that didn't make the cut, that's what we're going to be working on after we close this. We're gonna be looking at these and the 16s, because that will be the request for 16 unless somebody withdraws something here.
Steve, the thought
Yeah, I
is
think-
that, I'm sorry, Joe.
No.
The thought is that those items that didn't make the cut this year, obviously next year there'll be other items. But these items should have a little higher ranking in the process of determining what we can afford to fund, either with borrowing or free cash.
It's also the responsibility of the person making the request. They can rank themselves, saying, if they have 5 requests, this is my most important. And then something else may come up, during the year, especially in DPW where, maybe the truck now becomes number 2 as opposed to number 1 next year.
It's a very fluid process, Steve, that,
Oh, right.
you know,
Yep.
it doesn't mean that the ranking that's shown on here for the items below the line is the ranking that they're gonna go into next year's.
Understood, yeah, understood.
Okay, anything further?
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you to the members of the committee. I think this was a very worthwhile committee that we formed about a year or so ago. It's worked well. Thank you. Moving on.
We plan on voting acceptance of that now, or we have to wait?
Is there a motion to accept it? We can do that.
Well, I think we
Should.
should,
Yeah,
unless
so
we
then-
want to take it under advisement, I think we should.
I'm good.
I'm prepared to adopt it. I don't know how the other members of the board feel in terms of what's been presented. Bob,
Just a
well, as
question for
entertained.
Mr. Belliconis. Have you reviewed that capital plan?
Yeah, I don't have any disagreement with it at all. Bob, I don't have any disagreement with it at all.
Oh, okay.
Board members? We ready
I'm
to
fine with it.
to adopt it? Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the fiscal year 2015 capital improvement plan as presented by the capital improvement plan committee. Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the time you guys put into this.
Okay, item 11.
What's that?
Review of town
No, you can take it,
vehicles and
though.
update on the FY
Somebody may want it.
2014 town building projects.
Right there. I got it right there. Liz, can you hit the power button on that for me? Thank you. I'm sorry, where are we at now?
Item 11.
Thank you.
Let's see. Mr. Valiakonis, I appreciate the fact that you were able to compile this information for the board.
Sure, the board had asked me to update the listing of vehicles. So you have the 16 vehicles distributed amongst a number of departments that we consider to be take-home vehicles, together with what their ultimate and final destination is. And you see the title and the department of each of the employees that's assigned a take-home vehicle by the town. And we've also given you a copy of the town's total fleet schedule. As you can see, there's a number of vehicles that go on and off this list throughout the course of the year. My office maintains it, so we coordinate all the insurance records with our insurance company. And as you can imagine, keeping on top of the total fleet schedule is important to us because there's a cost associated with it. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the fleet before you discuss the building activities and projects.
Okay. Ms. Hurlbert?
To the TA through you, Mr. Delaney, Greg, could you possibly share that list with the finance committee?
Sure, sure, be happy to.
In terms of the vehicles, the take-home vehicles, I guess I have concern about those that are going out of state to start
Right.
with. Do we have exposure there with liability coverage? God forbid something were to happen.
No, because the vehicles are assigned to the title, and you can see that they're assigned to our foreman in the water department and our general foreman. Our auto insurance coverage is broad enough that it does cover vehicles that are being taken out of state. So I don't see that there's an insurance question.
Even if it's garaged out of state on a regular basis?
I don't see that as an issue or a problem at all, Sean. I'd be happy to discuss it with our insurance company to validate what I've just said, but I'm not aware of the fact that it's a particular insurance problem.
Anyone else have any questions regarding the vehicles? No? Okay. All right. I think we can move on to town building projects for FY 2014.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I thought we were gonna go to the, I didn't know you wanted questions on the total fleet.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Is there at any point where, as we're buying new vehicles, that we can get rid of some vehicles? I mean, I didn't realize we had this many.
Yeah, we
There's
do.
there's some old ones there, I don't know if they get used, if they ever get used, but if there's an opportunity for us to get rid of them completely, especially when we're buying new ones, maybe you buy a new one, get rid of 2 of them. I don't know the operation, so I'm just naive to the fact that, does every one of these get used?
Yes, and I can't tell you what the frequency use is, but we do go through, and wherever you see it delete, those are vehicles, and they show up on all the pages. You'll see that the words delete are included in here. So we do go through and we do trade vehicles. The practice that we have is not to build our fleet beyond the size that we have right now, and that wherever possible, we look to trade in vehicles at the time that we vote at town meetings. So we will either trade them, or we'll sell them through auction, or we'll dispose of them through scrap if they have no value at all. We've done that. We get rid of vehicles and we scrap vehicles all the time. But in terms of the size and the number, the departments have indicated that these vehicles are something that they consider important in running their departments. And you see items on there, I think I saw in 1974 when I was slipping through the list. And you look at it and you see that it's a pretty specialized piece of equipment. Vehicle number 3.
Yeah. Can you tell me what the fire department's general tractor is, 1984?
Do you have a vehicle number on it?
109, item number 109.
I don't, not off the top of my head.
Because we have to have insurance on every one of these vehicles, right?
Yeah, just the word, we see the word tractor.
Yeah, I was just
That
curious.
may be the manufacturer's name of a piece of equipment versus something that you're thinking about in terms of doing roads. So I'm suggesting with the values that are on there, that it's a piece of equipment, a piece of fleet equipment that's used in the department.
Tanker. Might just be a cabin chassis.
That may be it, huh?
Yeah. They had that big off-road tanker that they acquired from somewhere. Maybe that vehicle.
No, if we're using all the stuff, then,
Comes in pretty
so be
handy
it.
when we have floods, some of the pieces of equipment.
Flood and off-road for fires, brush fires and stuff like that.
Right.
They have to go off-road.
A lot of the fire equipment, you go for the back of the DPW, they store it up there. It's their emergency response stuff, specialized things.
Okay.
Cave-ins, like recently they responded, there was a cave-in, a trench somewhere, they helped
Right.
respond, so they store it up back there. They have 2 military surplus trucks, one painted red, one's for parts. That's what that does as well.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding the vehicles?
Just a comment, as you can see, there's decisions that are made in terms of whether we insure vehicles for collision, depending upon the age. All of the vehicles are insured regardless of the level of usage for maximum liability to protect the town. So one thing that we do is we ensure that the town is fully protected. And when there is an accident and it occurs, and the department is responsible then for paying the deductible. So we don't pull the deductibles out of the administration, the insurance account. The department that actually incurs the accident pays the deductible. If it's a no-fault accident, then the monies are recovered and put back into the department budget. You see a number of them where they're, where we simply just go ahead and we have coverage for liability and medical payments.
Thank you.
Okay.
On to town building projects for FY 14. Now, do we allocate for FY 14 $50,000 towards, specifically towards town building
No,
improvements?
that article was passed over.
Okay, so we didn't do that.
Right. I'm sorry, Sean, there was an amount of money, I can't tell you whether it was $50,000, but we did approve, what we considered to be non-capital improvements to various town buildings and facilities. I was thinking about another article that was there, but we did in fact improve money.
Yeah, we did.
So the cost to date here exceeds that, so where would that other funding come from?
Give me a second.
FY14.
FY14, the article passed, $50,000, town building improvements. The spreadsheet I have here looks like there's, in excess of that, that was,
Not all of that is related to the 50,000.
No.
The 50,000 was just for flooring.
Right, yeah, because we had the security, we had a separate one for the security, I believe.
Right.
okay.
The booking enclosure was
Yeah.
separate, I believe.
Right, and something, if you look at the Damon Tavern, that amount is paid for through the revolving fund,
Okay.
so it's not actually an appropriation that we go to town meeting with.
Mr. Foot?
So I have a question. So some of this was budgeted elsewhere, correct, Liz? Some of this was budgeted not just from the 50,000 in capital, but elsewhere. So I guess one of the things that town administrator said was it was non-capital, we deemed them as non-capital projects.
There were non-capitals, yes.
So, but the DPW cold storage, that was a request in last year's capital
Mhm.
that didn't make it to the level of what the committee felt should have been.
The tents.
Right, so
The
how,
replacement
where
of
did the
the
funding
tents.
for this come from then?
There was, Dick, help me if I'm wrong, there's an amount of money that was put in the DPW budget for, not for the tents, not repair of the tent structures, but actually construction of an area, that covered area that's attached to the building. So this is not the
That was in the
tents.
operating budget?
It's in the town buildings budget.
It specified that?
I don't recall the particular level of detail. I know Dick and I had this conversation because it's come up before. I was concerned that we were putting money back into those tents, and in fact determined that that was not being done.
How much
Right,
money was,
so-
oh, sorry.
So the question I have is, phase 2 and phase 3 was requested in the capital again for this year. If that doesn't occur, is how, I mean, so it wasn't on, didn't make the level of
No.
funding for this year.
Certainly didn't, no.
My concern with that money didn't come out of the $50,000 that we had for
Flooring?
flooring and stuff like that, did it?
I just listed all projects doing for buildings. It wasn't article specific. It might, some of it's prior fiscal year, some of it's articles in prior years.
Well, I think you're misunderstanding my question. My question is that we have a process, we have a capital improvement planning process. And my concern is that if something is requested and doesn't make that what the committee deems and what the Board of Selectmen ultimately vote on, doesn't make that cut, how is it being funded elsewhere? And that's, my concern is that came from someplace that should have been used for something else, I don't know.
Well, I
requested money for the tents, not the lean-to.
But this is in its place, because you're not gonna replace the tents. You told us at the capital improvement meeting that in lieu of doing the tents, you found this to be a better and more cost-effective way of, and you'll get more space out of it, which I agree with. I think it's a great idea, and it came out very nice. That being said, so this is, ultimately is in lieu of redoing the tents. Mr. Briscoe?
No, this is the first time I even heard that we were building these, because I thought we voted against doing them. How much money has been spent then this far on that capital project?
It's right here.
It says 16,000.
Oh, that's what's been spent, okay.
Yeah.
16,000.
16,000. Okay.
And since it wasn't funded specifically going forward, there would be no work on that going forward.
Okay.
For that particular project.
So that came out of the DPW, that's DPW budget money? Is that what that is?
Last year's operating budget, I believe.
can assure you it didn't come out of the $50,000 that we appropriated for flooring.
Confused. Earlier you said it wasn't out of the operating budget.
No, it's not out of the flooring.
No. But the explanation we got earlier wasn't that it wasn't, it was out of the operating budget. Now we're just told that it was out of the operating budget.
No, I've said right along that it didn't come from the $50,000 that we set aside.
No, no.
for-
No, I
Operating
understand
budget.
that. Mr. Cannavale just said it came out of the operating budget.
I'm gonna defer to his expertise on that. I asked him, I was asked as to whether he had appropriated money to repair the tents. I reviewed that information, I found that the town in fact did not make any expenditure to repair those tents, and therein I learned that there was being work done on an outside cold storage facility, and that those monies were not coming from the $50,000 that we appropriated for building projects. So, given that, I think that Mr. Cannavale's statement is correct.
How was it built? By in-house staff or contractors?
The telephone poles were installed by us, the grading was done by us. Monahan Lumber sold us the materials at roughly 50% of the cost. We had a carpenter install most of the wood products.
Okay. Anything else?
I just have one. Last year, we discussed the town building improvements. One of the discussions that came up was the security door that had to be added in the CPC. And I know back then it was a big issue. I only learned about it a year ago when you brought it up, Mr. Valiakonis. But I don't see that on here anymore. And I don't think, is it done already?
No.
So I was curious why that wasn't on the list, because I thought that was a big issue last year.
That's, Mike, that falls under the security improvements. Line item is like 9,000 left. 9 or 8.
Okay. Okay.
So we completed all the other projects, all the windows and the doors and the lights. So that's the next project is, and I talked to Danielle, that's our number one, to put that in.
Okay.
But it's still on the books to do, and there's funds for it.
Yeah, that's fine. That's under security improvements. Thank you. I didn't know what it was. Excellent. Thank you.
Very good. Anything further? No, thank you.
It's good.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Valiakonis. Item 12, Candlewood Lanes Bowling Alley License Renewal. Is this off cycle for some reason?
Yeah, it's off cycle because my recollection is does not renew on December 31st. I believe it's
May 1st?
a May 1st renewal. It's one of those odd ones.
Actually, we have a note that the renewal has not been received in the mails asking, request to pass over.
Okay. We'll pass over item 13 as well. Item 13 was to ratify the Smith Settlement Agreement. And item, let's go back to item 5, minutes, April 7, 2014, regular session.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the April 7, 2014 regular session minutes as written.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And I believe, I think it's a good time as we're approving these minutes to say thank you very much to our recording secretary, who's resigning effectively this evening due to big developments in her family. So I wish her the best of luck. As I said to you earlier, it was a pleasure having you, and by far you were the most engaged and most wonderful recording secretary we've had in my 6 years.
We gotta move Mr. Prisco's seat. That's all there is to it. He can't sit next to the.
I know,
Nothing to do with it.
it's gotta be him.
Yeah.
Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
You've been
Thank you.
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael's a good name.
Steve?
It's a girl.
He wants the name.
Michaela.
Michaela.
Michelle.
Thank you.
All right. Discuss town meeting warrant articles. We're gonna ask for a 5-minute recess. The chair needs a 5-minute recess.
Oh, thank God, yes.
Greg, is this different than what's in the
Yeah, it's been
warrant?
updated, Bob, I updated it today.
Okay.
think we're all set, ready to resume? Thank you. Back to discuss the June town meeting warrant articles. Mr. Valiakonis?
Updated list here.
I timed that just right, did I not?
That was very good. Thank you, Selectman Briscoe.
Ahead.
Sorry.
The first 6 articles are articles that are meant to address current fiscal year 14 issues. As you know, at one time, we used to post both an annual and a special town meeting warrant, and we since have gone to a single consolidated town meeting warrant, which addresses both current year actions and next fiscal year actions. So the first, again, 6 articles deal with issues that we don't have specific dollar amounts with them. However, one of them is funding money for the snow and ice deficit, funding the capital improvement stabilization fund, the water improvement stabilization fund, which includes a transfer from the current year retained earnings, and then appropriation of money to the stabilization fund, and appropriation of funds to cover any deficit that may occur in the overlay account. All of those would be transfers, so they would not affect any of the budgetary numbers that we've been talking about over the last few months relative to the next year's budget. The source of funds would either be from free cash or from internal funds that we might have available, i.e. surpluses that exist within departmental budgets. And you can see from Article number 3, that is our capital improvement stabilization fund. It's important that we maintain funding of that article, and what we've done in the past is we've gone through and identified surpluses and transferred monies into this account. So over the next couple of weeks, we will be doing and finalizing the amounts for these categories, and for the board's next meeting, we'll be able to update you with the particular dollar amounts that may be necessary for each of these items. The next several articles leading up to Article 13 are all routine items. There are various authorizations that are required through the town, including compensating balance agreements, which the treasurer has a right to enter into, which then eliminates what you consider to be banking fees, authorization for Chapter 90, acceptance of easements by the DPW for drainage purposes, and so forth. The real article that we need to pay attention to here is Article 13, which is our fiscal year 2015 operating budget. The finance director and I have been working on resolving it, and as of this date, we do have a balanced budget with no deficits between the town and the schools. So we have a balanced budget that accounts for all of our fixed costs, the school budget and the town budget at this point, so all of the dollars have been spoken for. And as part of the budget hearing in a week on Monday evening, we will get into detail in terms of what comprises the budget and the revenue projections and expenses that are included within the budget appropriation. Any questions about this article before we move on to the next one? Okay. Article 14 is put in as a placeholder, however, I do not anticipate that we're going to need it. In the past couple of fiscal years, we have transferred money from free cash to supplement the budget and cover one-time expenses. An example of that is the COPS grant program and some of our one-time paramedic training. So I don't believe that this article is necessary going forward, and I would suggest, given the fact that we haven't anticipated anything in our budget, that it actually can be removed at this point. So are there any objections to that? Okay.
No.
It's out. Article 15, we will populate this.
Just to, that depends, and again, if we're looking for a smooth transition between administrators, would not this be an appropriate place to do it, other than going to the finance committee for?
This is
Well, Steve, I had requested that additional money be put in the salary pool for that purpose.
From where or when? When was that?
It's in the budget.
Right. So next week, we'll run down some of the assumptions associated with the salary pool.
I don't think this gets you there, Steve. This is the transfer of funds to supplement the FY 2015.
Right.
This is next year's,
Sorry.
right?
Okay.
But I understand his question.
Yeah,
We have a
yeah.
mechanism in place to do that?
Yeah, we're all set.
Okay.
So we've accounted for additional monies in the salary pool for the TA transition, and also what we anticipate is one other transition in municipal management in fiscal year 2015. The finance director and I have gotten together, along with a couple of members of the board at our financial planning team meeting, and budgeted those monies in the salary pool. Capital. The article that you see here does not include any of the items that you voted this evening. However, what we have done in the past few years is we do include the project, the department, the dollar, and the source of funds. What that then does is that locks the capital plan in, which means that the dollar amounts associated with each capital item cannot increase, they can only decrease. So that's just something to keep in mind. It seems as though it's worked pretty well, and it sticks with the recommendation of the members of the CIPC who put forward a ambitious capital plan for this year. Article 16 is funding our end-of-career retirement, appropriate retirement obligations from both the town and the school side. And this is an article that we have that exists every single year. The amount that we've requested is, Liz, help me, is it 100 and?
For the retirement obligations?
Yep.
About 125, I think, approximately. It's 123.
So we budgeted 130 for this item, and this will be a raise and appropriate.
That's a very tight number.
What do you think it should be?
Well, based upon what we know for town employees retiring, the school employees have to give, they have a deadline that they have to give their retirement. So that calculates all the school employees that are retiring, and it calculates what we know for town employees.
Okay, so someone at a later date.
So just bear in mind
notifies you.
that if somebody, decides in September.
Right.
The position the town has taken is, if someone doesn't provide us with notice and we don't include it in the budget, they don't lose that benefit. That benefit is deferred until a later date, until the town has sufficient funds. So just keep in mind that that's the practice that we've institutionalized in the past. It's well accepted. If it's planned for and it's in the budget, then the monies are covered. The others will have to wait potentially 4 months until October, or potentially they could even have to wait until the June town meeting of 2015 before we appropriate additional funds.
And the school deadline's already passed, correct?
That amount includes all the schools, yes.
But their deadline for notification.
It's mid-February.
Right, it was February.
Right.
So.
And I was led to believe the school retirement number is spread over 3 years. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
Yes, it is, yep.
So in other words,
Right.
somebody's going out, they get that money over 3 years.
So I was only mentioning it was tight just for the fact, as Greg mentioned, that in case somebody decides in
Right.
August and we go to October town meeting and ask for a budget amendment.
Thank you.
Yeah, I recall one unexpected retirement taking place in April about 3 years ago. We didn't budget for it, and we weren't able to pay it until the next year. Articles 17 and 18 are placeholders. They are for transferring monies into the solid waste stabilization fund. The source of monies would be from the solid waste or sanitation budget. That calculation will be done as we get to town meeting. Keep in mind that those monies have been drawn down substantially. Transferring money into the OPEB Benefits Liability Trust Fund, we like to put this on there, but realistically, funding for this should be done at the October town meeting. Articles 19 and 20 are two companion articles. The first article is for the board to grant easements to private property owners in the area of the new high school for the purposes of access. The second article is authorizing the board to acquire, or if necessary, take or acquire any land and/or easements associated with access to the high school. Both of those have to be done by vote of town meeting. They're separate and independent votes. Keep in mind that the language that you see here before you still requires vetting and review of town council, so that will be brought forward. And the versions that you see in a week may be a little bit different than what you see here today. Articles 21 and 22. Article 21 is similar to the $50,000 that we talked about. Money is being appropriated for flooring a year ago. We do not presently have any monies set aside for Articles 21 and 22, although I do think that going into October town meeting that they are appropriate subjects for consideration at that time. Article 23 and 24 both deal with borrowings. The first is utilization of the bond premium for the purposes of funding the high school project. And in my recollection, Liz will correct me if I'm wrong, the necessity for this action is that it has to take place before the end of the fiscal year, or those monies are potentially declared as surplus and they go away, i.e. they get calculated as part of our free cash. So it's important that they maintain their identity with the school project, which is why the finance director has appropriately requested this article be put forward for town meeting. Article 24, this is the appropriation of $89,000 that was identified as surplus by the Hillview Commission. Those monies originally voted for the renovation of the function facility. And as a result of that, they wish to reprogram some of that borrowing for the purposes of various improvements to the course, and those will be enumerated here. So the amount is $89,000.
Greg, the one concern I have with this was that I think the original appropriation was bonded for a substantial number of years. It may have been 30.
Right.
And some of the things that were on the list were well below that, and I was curious as to whether or not that actually could be accomplished.
That's a question that we're going to let council look at and review. I understand exactly what you're coming from, as to whether they meet the borrowing term that was part of the original authorization. That I don't know, Bob. Until that's really a question for legal counsel to look at, but we will ask them to flag it.
We also have to send it to bond council for them to approve the, repurchasing of it, so.
Well, then should this be changed to maybe rescind it also?
I tried to, there was an article that we had for rescission of the monies for the culvert project over the Route 62, Martin's Pond. And I looked at that article and I tried to parallel the wording in that article so that it fits here. But this would be, the Hillview still intends to use $211,000 in proceeds from their project for renovations to the function facility. So that project, and Selectman Prisco will correct me because he's been working with the commission on this, there still is an amount of money that has been borrowed but hasn't been utilized, which will be utilized for renovations to the function facility. And then this is the, so to speak, the monies that they consider to be surplus. So we don't want to discontinue the project, because then that means the monies that they have programmed for renovations will go away. We don't want that to happen.
It's not just bands at this point, it's been borrowed.
Right.
It's permanent.
It's bonded.
Right.
That amount of money.
So you gotta spend it?
What?
So you have to spend it?
Right.
Well,
No, they're gonna spend it.
Up to.
I mean, the plan is right
I
now.
think the issue is.
Can they
what-
spend it
what-
appropriately?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right, spend it appropriately.
Yeah, out of the 300, oh, it was 100 for a piece of equipment, and the other 3 for building improvements. They've decided now they're gonna use 200 of the 300 for the building improvements. They've already used 11,000 also of the 300. That's where that 89,000 remaining comes from, that they wanna use a portion of it to pay for the tent and to buy some furnishings to go inside the tent. And then the remaining money would be used to go towards their plan for repairing and replacing tee boxes. Out of that 89 grand.
Rick, but the amount of time that it's been bonded for may not be appropriate for the projects they have in mind.
That
Right, well,
has
that,
to be looked at.
that's, I know that's-
That was that, the capital, community, committee had a request from, the Hillview for 4 items. We brought them in because we couldn't understand what was going on. We thought that these were already happening. And they were unclear on the concept of borrowing. They borrowed the monies for these specific items, and they were only listed because, I don't know, they forgot to take them off.
yeah, they made a mistake in this.
That was a misunderstanding.
It was just a misunderstanding on their part.
Right.
Yeah.
So we did talk to them about it, and they were gonna figure it all out and then try and repurpose it at town meeting, but that's what happened.
Thank you.
Well,
The remaining articles on the warrant are reauthorizations of revolving funds and.
Excuse me, just to go back to that, should this article be that specific to these projects? If it doesn't fall within the confines of the ability to bond it for the period of time this is bonded?
I haven't seen a copy of that, so I don't know what problems are.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if it doesn't fit the parameters,
Well, I think,
then I'm
I
sure
think
there's
there's
other.
a problem with it, that's why I brought it up.
Right,
Maybe there's a way around it,
but if
this
you,
is
if you.
not
if you-
necessarily the way.
Again, if you pin yourself down here in the article, you really pin yourself down.
I guess I interpreted Greg as trying to get that, an
Council's
answer
looking
to
at
that, and then change the language.
Yeah.
Or take it off, maybe.
Yeah, and then it would really, they'd have to then revert back to, if they wish to fund these things, to the Article 1 budget amendment, where there would be monies coming from some source for the purposes, supplementing the budget for the purposes that are set forth in this article. That would really be the alternative at that point. But that would still be there as a backup.
Yeah, I mean, one thing they could do, Steve, is take additional money out of their retained earnings, the 89,000, and thinking next year they'll have a capital something in there that's the
Right, which would be
appropriate.
appropriate for the bond.
Yeah,
Yeah, it just, shelving, I understand that, but to, just on the surface, it doesn't appear to fit, so,
I didn't think it did.
no. So it need, I was like, no, it needs fixing. Okay.
Well, this is what they would like to do, and if we can try to find a way to make it work at town meeting.
Well, I
Not
think
with that appropriation.
One approach is to have them pay for those items from their retained earnings, and then know that they have in the bank that additional money that fits a 30-year plan for a project that might be on their budget next year or the year after. Unless there's some other way, and I don't know what it is.
Probably.
Now, if it was a ban, it might be different, but it's a bond, and therefore,
It's permanent.
Got it.
So
Right, but
is someone gonna have
council's
a
looking at it.
conversation with Peter?
Council's looking at it. Hopefully we'll have an answer for the meeting a week from last night, so on Monday night.
Okay, there should be adequate notification to Mr. Hemme.
We'll communicate back with him.
Right.
The remaining articles on the warrant are reauthorization of various revolving funds that have become ingrained not only in North Reading but throughout Massachusetts. They are pretty common. And as I know, they're done typically in the form of a single motion that flies through town meeting. So just to confirm a couple of things associated with town meeting and the budget. Deadlines are, the budget hearing is Monday at 7 PM. It will be advertised in the newspaper. And also, the department heads will be present. Liz and I will lead a discussion in terms of the high points on the budget. There's an opportunity then for the board and the public to raise any issues that they wish. The date for voting budget recommendations and warrant article recommendations will be the following Monday, May 2nd, I believe is the date. So please keep in mind, is it 5th? Sorry about that. 5th.
Somehow it's like
Fifth.
printed in my head.
I don't know why I have May 2nd in my head. But May 5th is the final date for voting recommendations, and the Finance Committee is aware that that week is also their deadline for voting recommendations. The reason being is we want to get them into the booklet that gets published and sent out to residents. So again, the bottom line is of this date, we have a balanced budget, and we'll be prepared to go through all of our assumptions and details at your meeting next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will we have an issue with parking for town meeting? Associated with,
We'll have an abundance of parking.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
Not expecting a big crowd?
Yeah.
okay, given that, yes, but,
The gymnasium side, I would imagine, would be utilized.
I think you can use both sides.
I can tell you that the other entrance is blocked off, and
Oh, it should be open by then.
that was my question.
It's gonna be open by then, right?
That was my question, is that
What
gonna
will
be
be
open by
open?
then?
The new entrance?
No.
No.
September.
That
September.
entrance is shut down until the beginning of the school year.
All right.
Yeah, okay, that's why I asked
Yep.
the question.
We can park at Mr. Delaney's house, Walko, he doesn't mind.
See,
Shuttle
it's not
service.
the parking.
My son has a license.
Oh, nice.
For a small
There
fee.
you go.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Valiakonis, your town administrator.
yes, I want to turn to a couple of things that were in my report. The first is the letter that the board had received addressed to Mr. Masseri as chairman of the Board of Selectmen. Congratulations on your new role. It indicates that Andover seeks to increase the water rate to $3.41 per 100 cubic feet, effective May 1st. As you know, the board had previously voted to accept the 10-year rate at $3 per 100 cubic feet, plus an annual increase of 2.5%. That was conveyed to Andover that in fact we did accept their offer. So the fact that they've gotten back to us and indicated that the landscape has changed is quite disappointing, and I've expressed that to Mr. Stapsinski. I did go back and ask the DPW to calculate what we would estimate the shortfall would be based upon what we have appropriated for the current year, and it's between $35,000 and $50,000. And for the next fiscal year, would be about $200,000. So those are the numbers that we've calculated, the difference between what we estimate for rates and what we budgeted for rates for both the current year and for the next fiscal year. So it's not an inexpensive dilemma that we have, and it's not gonna go away.
Any response from the letter that was sent to them?
No response.
No response.
You got the
We need-
response.
Well, that's what, that wasn't the response to the initial. The next step is a joint meeting between
Yeah, I think
this
that's-
board and them.
And again, we need to contact legislative delegation to start initiating some action to protect communities such as ourselves from predatory practices of our colleagues from the north. And it's, $200,000 additional. Our water rates are already the highest in the area because of the situation we've been put in. And now Andover is adding and exacerbating the situation, just to line their coffers on a short-term basis and to capitalize on our needs. And I think it's extremely unfair, unwarranted, and I think it's almost unlawful. I mean, that interbasin water transfer which was allowed in 1991, was for good reason, and it wasn't there for Andover to gouge us on. And up to this point, they haven't. They've been very fair with us. Again, our rates are a little higher because of that, but they've been fairly fair. What they've done here is extraordinarily unfair. And if they're not willing to correct the action themselves, we should be seeking some relief through the legislature that granted the intermunicipal transfer agreement. It shouldn't be allowed.
Do you know what agency that was?
Which agency? It was the
Granted.
legislature.
It was the legislature.
It was the legislature. It took, because we were taking water from
Yeah.
the Merrimack River, bringing it into the Ipswich River water basin, it required legislative action.
Okay, so that wasn't done on a permit, that was done on
No, that was done legislatively. It was the only way it could be done. The first of its kind, by the way.
Mr. Prisco.
I think we should disregard that last letter. I think we should move forward with the letter that we received with the three options. That's what was transpiring, in good faith, going back and forth. We selected the third option, which was a 10-year option with the two...
2.5 per year.
2.5 per year. I think we should update the contract. We have it electronically, we update it based on that. We sign it, we vote on it, we sign it, we send it over to them, and we move forward. We
That's what
completely
we voted
did.
to do. We voted to do that at the last meeting.
Yeah, we should just go and do it. But I'd like to see the contract get updated.
I'll do that.
Put the rates in there, let's vote on it, sign it, and send it
I
over.
thought we voted to start paying in May based upon the agreed upon rates, notify them that's what we're going to do, and let them take us
Yeah,
to court.
let's sign the contract, let's sign the contract, vote on it and sign it, and send it over.
I wouldn't pay the rate until July 1. I'd pay the old rate until then.
But whatever that new agreement called.
Whatever,
Yeah,
If
I
it was
agree.
July 1st.
That was the only term, that was the only thing outstanding to my recollection.
That was it.
Was when the new rate was going into effect. It would make sense to start.
We had a
I
good
would
faith
have-
discussion.
I would have our town council address a letter to the Board of Selectmen and council up there stating that, we already voted in favor of accepting the terms and conditions as presented, and we intend on paying those rates effective whatever the date of that agreement was going to be, and move on. If they want to take us to court, let them take us to court. I'm with you.
Yeah, I agree.
That's it.
Although that's what we said to do anyway.
Great.
So,
Let's do it.
That's why I really thought we were gonna see.
Have council draw up a letter?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I will do.
Good.
I wasn't at the last meeting, so I missed that, but I do want to in fact confirm that we did accept their rates, and we put it in writing that we did accept their offer.
yeah.
Oh, that was done.
You
did
did
that
a great
back in
job.
March.
Right after the meeting.
Yeah, early
Let's
March,
keep
that
moving
was
forward.
done.
And I think we should build our budgets, make sure we go back and have, let Mr. Carnavale and Mr. Clark know, adjust the rates based on that, and that's it. Put that
Exactly,
in.
and that budget that you will be voting next week accommodates that 10-year
Great.
funding schedule that
Great.
we put in place.
Good.
Just going through my list of things, you received a letter from Moody's Investor Services reaffirming the town's AA bond rating.
Nice.
Excuse me one second. As far as meeting with that board, the Board of Selectmen in Andover, I think I would await their response from a letter from council. Unless they initiate something else themselves. I don't know what everybody else's feeling is, but.
No,
That's fine, at this point, yeah, I don't think it's worthwhile to, if that's the route we're taking.
They
then to
voted
engage.
it at one of their meetings, we approved it. Yeah, I think you're right, Steve. Let's see what the next move is.
Yeah, because engaging them may open the door to say, okay, you didn't have an agreement.
How do we get billed anyway? They bill us monthly?
Yes. Yes, they
Based
do.
on a meter at the town,
Yes.
the town line?
Yes, and my understanding is they're prepared to go out and read that meter on April 30th at 12 midnight to ensure that every gallon that gets charged after May 1st is at the new rate.
Do we read the meter too?
We will.
Trust but
Good
verify.
question.
Good question, is
Well, I
good.
would hope we do.
Question is good.
We're better going forward.
Maybe we ought to have just on the other side of the line, our own meter.
Sorry,
Some good news, the town did receive a letter, I received a letter from Moody's Investment Services reaffirming the town's AA bond rating. The bond rating fortunately is maintained at a AA rating. It wasn't too long ago that we were AA3, we're now a AA2, so that's creeping in the right direction. And there are all types of disclaimers that they reserve the right to withdraw or revise the rating at any point going forward, and that's pretty standard. The fact that we've gotten through the school building project and the town's bond rating has been maintained is a testament to the board and the town officials who made this happen, so I thank all of those participants. And then companion to that is you have a letter from Mr. Hingston, who is the town's auditor that was in to see you not too long ago, which is the communication that they need to make under the law with regard to not their findings, but how they perform their audit. And it indicates that if you have any questions, to contact Mr. Hingston directly, but it basically goes through the process that they use in discovering their audit and compiling information associated with that. I just had one last thing that didn't make it into the printed form, and that's the gas pipeline project. As you know, there's been a lot of information in the community about the Tennessee Gas Pipeline Northeast Expansion Project. And I did reach out to their, they have two people that are working in town, one of them from their real estate office who's going out and contacting individuals. And the other is from their public affairs department. I had made a request to the public affairs department that they conduct a public informational meeting in town. And it looks as though that meeting is gonna take place in June. I didn't get any particular dates, but what I indicated to them is that the town has serious concerns about residents being contacted about a project that we know very little about. And I think it's vitally important that if the gas company wishes to have the cooperation of North Reading town officials, that they do the right thing and set up this meeting. And I would expect that this meeting would take place here in town, at the town hall. We'll have it over in the gymnasium. That will provide proper notice to all the affected parties that have an opportunity to be there. And there can be information presented in a comprehensive manner to the residents to which they deserve. Similar or companion to that is the gentleman that's going out and knocking on doors and asking people to sign permission to have surveying work done. I've indicated to him that until that meeting takes place, I would not recommend that any of these documents be signed. And so that's where we stand on that right now. I did communicate to Representative Jones the status, because I know his office is also receiving a lot of calls from residents who are similarly concerned about the project.
By the way, did this gentleman go and check in with the police department like any other vendor? Or
I
hawker or peddler?
told him under no uncertain terms that he would, the police department would be contacted if he stepped out of line at all. He's been good with me, but I understand that he's been rather aggressive in terms of asking people to sign these survey forms, and I don't think that's right at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a bylaw, everybody going door to door.
Not without a presentation.
Right. I haven't even heard about this project until you sent me this.
Yeah, it's.
I didn't even know it existed.
It's interesting because this is supposed to be phase 2. The phase 1 project is a larger project that is from the New York state line up to Northern Tier along Route 2 up to Drake, as I understand. I had understood that this project was 3 to 4 years out and that they had to get their permitting in place for phase 1 before they would begin discussions about phase 2. The gentleman frankly left my office, and an hour later he was knocking on people's doors after I told him not to do that. So, any other questions about the pipeline project that I can get back to these people on?
No, but again, I would just reiterate your call and tell people don't sign anything, you know?
Well, that's my position.
I think it's a good recommendation at this point not to sign anything with them until they come make a full presentation.
Yeah.
At this point in the community as a whole.
You know, what would be very useful, at least from my perspective, is to have a map showing the actual pipeline plan, where it's going in town.
I think
So we all have a sense of the areas.
Follow the high tension wires.
What?
Follow the high tension wires.
Yeah, I heard
That's
that,
it,
but I
that's
mean,
it.
what does that actually mean?
I think it'd be a great idea, Bob. Just so you know, there's a number of town properties that they need access to. I haven't signed it, and I won't sign it until there's a meeting that takes place.
The access that they're requesting is for survey purposes?
Correct. Correct. So what they want to do is they want to conduct civil and environmental surveys. So that's not just out there with surveying equipment, it's actually going out there and looking at the geology and the soil conditions that are in the area.
I would feel a lot more comfortable if we notified this company that if they're going to be in town and they're gonna be knocking on people's doors, that they have to check in with the police department. I would suggest you meet with the chief and have an exchange with him and have them visit with the chief and make sure they build a schedule with him so he knows who's going into our neighborhoods, who's knocking on doors. I think the chief should be aware of that and his staff. I think the community deserves that.
I think it's a good idea. There was one last thing that I put in the packet that I didn't mention. It's got nothing to do with this project, is the town was eligible to receive money under the Winter Rapid Recovery Road Program, or the pothole fund that the board received notice of. All of the paperwork has been submitted to Mass Highway. The preliminary forms have been submitted, and DPW is aware of the scope of the project. So all of the paperwork has been submitted by the deadline, which I believe is at the end of this month. The next deadline will be at the end of June, where we need to identify projects in terms of how we will spend these monies. So at this point, everything's been done to get that money back into the town. That's it. Thank you.
I had a question on that road program. I had a question on that in my old and new business. So how does that work for budget-wise?
Mhm.
So we get that extra money, we can't do any work on our roads until we get that money, or can we go ahead and in advance and do the work and then recoup our funds?
That's my understanding, similar to the way Chapter 90 is handled, is that we receive approval for a project, we expend the money, we document the fact that the project is completed, and the state reimburses us.
So where do those funds come from to do the work?
Typically, what we do is we'll use monies within the existing budget to be able to do that. Similar to Chapter 90, where we will be receiving $500,000 in Chapter 90 money.
Mhm.
We receive an appropriation of town meeting to be able to expend monies in anticipation of reimbursement. So there's no need to actually run it through the budget at that point.
Worst case, it creates a cash flow problem, but I
Yeah.
doubt if we have that.
Right.
So what are we talking, 70 grand?
76?
Close to
Okay. So the DPW budget won't go up 76 grand?
Oh, gosh, no.
Okay.
No. I think Bob mentioned to you, it's really just a matter of how we handle it in terms of our cash flow. It's money in, money out.
Okay. Thank you.
And $76,000 worth of
Wonderful.
repairs that wouldn't have got done otherwise
Yeah.
get done.
No, it's wonderful. And our roads needed. I mean, it was a tough winter.
Yeah, sure is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valiakonis. Old new business. Mr. O'Leary?
Again, just want to reiterate thanks and appreciation for our recording secretary's short tenure here, not too short.
But very good
But
tenure.
you've had a very good tenure, and you've done a great job, and we're all caught up, and everything was cogent and understandable and accurate. So again, wish you the best of luck, too. Thank you very much. And then just wish Mr. Messeri a speedy recovery due to his
Good night, Dan.
recent incident as of yesterday, and maybe the marathon next year. You know?
How about that, Steve?
Oh, we're talking about just going there to drink, Bob.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
And watch it.
just to observe.
He wants to be able to sail, that's what he wants to do.
That's right.
Right.
But no, speedy recovery. That's all, Steve. Thank you.
Mr. Fode?
Same as Mr. Leary, the only thing I'd like to add is congratulations to all the North Reading residents who participated in the marathon yesterday. It was pretty impressive to see that list this morning and how they finished, so kudos to them and congratulations for a job well done.
Mr. Fode?
I was looking for Joe's name on the list.
Yeah, well,
People are He's having trouble walking these days.
unless it's my nephew.
Mr. Messeri?
Again, I just want to thank the North Reading Fire Department for their superb service, which I assume they give to all residents when the need comes. I was in pretty bad shape there on the ground and wasn't going anywhere. My wife wasn't going to get me up. But they did a great job. There will be change on the board, and I hope that disagreements and the discussions that we had today are put aside as we go forward. We have a lot on our plate, and it can only be done if we're working together. I'd like to thank the members of the screening committee for their effort. I know it's been said already, but it was one of the best committees, short-term committee that I've worked on. Everybody was there, everybody was focused, and everybody did their job. And maybe there was a little miscommunication as to what the expectations of the board was, but I think the job that was done and the way it was done, no one should be ashamed. Everybody should be enthused about the outcome, hopefully, going forward. With that, thanks for the kind words from everybody that wish me well, and I'll be back here at our next meeting, I hope.
Sure you will be. Thank you, Mr. Misery. Mr. Briscoe?
Just to add a little bit more to the marathon with all the people in town, I found it amazing when I was watching it yesterday, how much investment the runners put into running that marathon. And some of them, that's their career. And just to look at the list of our residents, they're some of them house moms, some of them are working moms, some of them are working fathers, and so on and so forth. And they still made that investment to conquer that, and it's just amazing. So kudos to them. I know I certainly couldn't do it. I did attend the the Massachusetts, Commonwealth of Massachusetts held a Economic Development Summit a couple weeks ago. It was a wonderful event. I had a great opportunity to sit and talk with Mayor Rivera from Lawrence, City of Lawrence. Said he would be really happy to sit with us, very interested in speaking with us about wastewater in the future. He has a team of people he'd like to sit with us and go over a plan. He'd like to participate in our discussions to make that happen. He was very welcoming, and he said he had some ideas where he think it would be beneficial for both communities to work together. And so I just passed that along, so when we're ready, or at that time, he said his door is open, he'll meet with us at any time. That's all I have.
Okay. Just pretty much ditto on most of what was said this evening, but I want to thank Mr. Kobayashi and the Collins Center for their assistance in getting us the candidates for the town administrator's position. Again, I wish to thank every member of the screening committee, including my two colleagues here, Mr. Fogg and Chair of the committee. It's a job well done. I also want to thank all the marathon runners, and I believe our own chief of police ran and completed the marathon yesterday in a little over 4 hours.
4 hours, 45 minutes.
A little over, we'll call it a little over.
That's why you couldn't be here today.
Not close to 5. It's a job well done. Amazing. Neither could I run that.
Oh, he beat Teddy Bruschi, that's all you wanted.
I couldn't run 26 feet, 26.2
Eddie
miles.
Bruschi ran.
He was right behind him.
Also, not only a speedy recovery to Mr. Misery, but I wish him a happy birthday. I know this isn't the way he wanted to spend it, either with the injury or with the sitting here at a meeting with us for about 4 hours, but happy birthday.
Thank you.
And with that, motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second.